The tale starts in a place no sane person would ever want to visit. The trees are gaunt and twisted. Pitch black mold and moss cover the ground in every direction. The sky above hangs low and murky, and almost no light gets through at all. This is a place full of bizarre monsters that nobody would ever see in the real world, and right now one of those monsters has our boy pinned to the ground. A massive reptilian jaw gapes wide, with rows of jagged teeth just inches from his face, and Kim Woojin barely has time to curse under his breath. This is really bad. Then the shadow of the beast swallows him whole and everything goes dark. Then his eyes fly open in a familiar bedroom. Woojin bolts upright in bed, gasping for breath with sweat beading on his forehead. For the 12th year in a row he has just been chewed apart in his sleep. He drags a hand down his tired face and mutters that it is that damn dream again. Outside the city hums with morning life, and nobody cares about his private hell. The guy drops his gaze to a notebook on his desk, where he has been jotting notes about weapons and swordsmanship, and the pain of dying is something he can handle. He has done it thousands of times already. What truly breaks him is not any monster's teeth, it is the simple act of falling asleep. Our boy is so damn tired. He goes over the whole thing in his head, the way he has 100 times before, just to keep things straight. If he falls asleep in reality, he gets sent back to that nightmare world, where the creatures wait to tear him apart. If he dies inside that nightmare, he is spat back into reality, breathless and shaking. There is no way for him to get a proper night of sleep at all. He curses softly with his jaw tight, and his eyes are bloodshot from years of unrest. To stop dying in that hellish dream, he has thrown himself into everything he could find. Weaponry and martial arts and swordsmanship, jungle survival and military tactics too. For 12 long years, the young man has done everything he could think of. Thanks to all that training, our boy now dies less often in the nightmares. He can slip a blade into a monster's throat instead of just running for his life. However, the deeper problem is not the monsters at all. The real problem is sleep itself. Woojin sits across from a psychiatrist, and she is a calm woman in a white coat and glasses. She suggests gently that he try to find something he wants to do, because then he might finally rest. The guy walks back onto the street and he turns the words over in his head, something he wants to do. He almost laughs at how simple the answer really is. The only thing he truly wants is to fall asleep. He just wants to sleep soundly, even if it is only once in his entire life. That wish lands harder than he expects. A warm trickle runs from his nose. Woojin blinks in confusion and touches his face, and his fingers come away smeared with dark red. Something inside him tears loose, and blood pours out in a rush, and it is faster than he can stop. He staggers and catches himself against the wall, and then his legs give way beneath him. His cheek hits the floor, and the blood keeps flowing without pause. A crimson pool spreads slowly around his head. Somewhere in his fading vision, his body feels light, and that terrible persistent headache he has carried for 12 years is suddenly just gone completely. Fresh, clean air fills his chest and his head. For the first time in longer than he can remember, our boy feels like he has actually slept well. It has been 12 whole years. Then his eyes crack open on a field of pale wildflowers under a shifting sky. This can't be right, he thinks. He turns his head, and the familiar sight of gnarled black trees and shadowed cliffs rises around him. Then this place is the nightmare world. The very hell he has suffered in for 12 straight years is now the ground beneath his feet. A sound scrapes across the leaves nearby, and the young man goes still. Something enormous is stalking through the underbrush. It is a lizard-like beast with a long snarling snout and glowing yellow eyes. Its blood-red tongue lashes between rows of teeth. His mind races through the possibilities. He had bled out on the bathroom floor, and he is certain of that much. With that amount of blood loss, he figures he might really be dead. If that is the case, then there is no reality left for him to return to. The truth settles into his chest, and he feels a strange calm about it. From now on, this place is his reality. Woojin knows exactly what kind of place this is, and he knows exactly what he needs to do to survive. Given the situation, the smart move is not to fight right now. He should slip away and head toward a bright place the monsters hate and regroup from there. That is what 12 years of training tells him, but something stops him cold, and it is a strange, unfamiliar heat rising in his chest. He does not want to run away. His breath comes steadier than it should. Is it because he slept deeply for the first time in ages? Or is it because this body he woke up in is younger than his real one? Whatever the reason, our boy grips his blade and turns to face the beast. His whole body is screaming at him to fight and to survive. The creature lunges with a roar that shakes the branches, and the guy steps in to meet it head-on. His long curved blade cuts a clean silver arc through the air and bites deep into the beast's neck. Blood sprays out in a dark ribbon. He does not stop there for a heartbeat. He twists inside its reach and drives his fist against its skull, and a strange blue crystalline glow flares across his knuckles as bone caves inward. The monster collapses with a wet groan, and its head is split, and its body is still twitching in the dirt. The young man stands over the corpse, breathing hard, with blood spattered across his face, and he stares out at the endless dark forest around him. The young man stands over the corpse, breathing hard, with blood spattered across his face, and he stares out at the endless dark forest around him. In this dark fantasy world, he tells himself he will survive no matter what it takes. That is the promise he makes now, on the very first day of his new reality. First, he needs to move somewhere safer. He sets off at a run with his cloak snapping behind him, and he weaves between the twisted trunks toward a brighter place, somewhere the creatures of shadow fear to go. And far away, under the same drifting light, another weary young man lifts his face toward the sky, and a second thread of this story has only just begun. For the first time in longer than he can remember, our boy is sleeping perfectly. A full month has passed since Kim Woo-jin crossed permanently into this world, and every night now, sleep comes easy. He has done what he set out to do and kept heading from the pitch-black inner shadows toward the light, and slowly the forest around him has grown less murderous. Just because he feels the urge to fight, though, does not mean he goes looking for one. Risking his life for fun is madness. The guy picks his battles carefully, and there are only two good reasons to draw blood in this place. The first reason is food. He is getting hungry again. His curved blade flashes through the underbrush and drops a monster in one clean stroke, and he crouches quietly to dress the kill. The second reason matters even more than the first one. Every demonic beast carries an essence inside its body, and it is a strange glowing shard of blue crystal cradled deep inside the flesh. Eating this thing gives him a chance to gain the monster's power. Ever since he started swallowing these cores raw, and adapting to this brutal place has become dramatically easier. His limbs move faster than they should, and his senses stretch farther than they used to. Then there is one more fact he has discovered that changes everything. This body he wakes up in belongs to someone with the status of a third-class mercenary. He knows this because a wooden identification tag was tucked into his belongings from the very start. The young man realizes with mild shock that he can now read the strange runic script carved into it. The two words spell out third-class mercenary in the language of this world. Our boy turns the token over in his gloved hand, and his eyes narrow with quiet interest. The very existence of a tag like this means people are living somewhere in this world. That single thought lights a fire under him. He picks up his pace after that, and cuts a straighter line through the trees, and finally the light he has been chasing breaks through the canopy in shafts of pale gold. Woo-jin stops short in his tracks. A cold metal glint catches his eye from the leaf litter, and his breath catches in his throat. It is a trap, an iron bear trap, oiled and freshly maintained by someone who clearly still lives out here. That means there might be people nearby, and his pulse quickens against his will. He crests a rise, and there it is, a small wooden cabin standing quietly among the gray twisted trees. It is a house. He can hardly believe what his eyes are showing him. He knocks and calls out to ask if anyone is home, but no one answers, so he slips inside. Dust hangs thick in the air, and the place appears completely empty. Then his eyes catch a thick, heavy book resting open on a table, and he flips carefully through it. The title reads, Demonic Realm Chronicles. The history of this place and all the terms used are recorded quite meticulously inside these pages. For him to survive in this world, this book is absolutely necessary. Then the floorboards creak behind him. Our boy turns around very slowly. An old man with wild white hair and a long white beard has an arrow drawn back to the corner of his mouth, aimed straight at Woo-jin's forehead. The stranger tells him to answer clearly, or he will put a hole in his head. The young man's shoulders drop just a fraction, and something close to relief crosses his tired face. It is an actual person. He is so glad to see one, even at arrow point. He holds up a placating hand and explains gently that there was just a house out here in the middle of nowhere, so he wandered in out of curiosity, and that is all. The old man's answer is flat and cold. He tells him to get lost and that he has no business with a stranger. Woojin dips his head and agrees, but then softly he asks one more thing. Could he possibly borrow this book to read? If there is a price, he will gladly pay it. The old man's eyes sharpen dangerously and he asks flatly what happens if he refuses. A long silence stretches between them. The guy thinks quietly that he absolutely needs this book to survive here. In that case, he says almost apologetically, he might just have to become a robber. He drops into a fighting stance with his blade angled and ready to move. He does not know how strong this old man really is, but he does not feel like he would lose. That is exactly the moment the old man lowers his bow. A robber, he mutters, would not stand there talking about wanting to read a book. He lowers his weapon fully and introduces himself as Hector. Our boy replies and relaxes all at once, telling him he is Kim Woojin. Hector tries the name a few times and frowns deeply. Gai Moojin, or something like that, is a quite peculiar name for anyone, he says. Woojin sighs and tells him to just call him Jin, please. His name must be hard for people here to pronounce. Hector nods and tells him plainly that the book is precious to him too and cannot be lent out. But if Jin wants to read it, he can stay here for a while and read it inside the cabin. In return, he would like some help with simple chores. Jin bows his head in thanks so quickly he nearly startles the old man. And so the young man ends up living at Hector's house for the time being. The old man is gruff and short on words, but he does not seem bad underneath all of that. That evening, Hector places a wooden bowl in front of him and tells him gruffly to eat up. Jin's eyes go wide at the sight of warm soup for the first time in longer than he can even remember. He tastes it and can barely speak from how good it is. Hector might be an angel wearing an old man's face. That is what Jin decides silently, right then and there. At sunrise, Hector shoulders his bow and heads out hunting. Jin asks if he is going out today too, and the old man nods once. Today might take a while, he says. He mentions almost offhandedly that he is going to take revenge on the monster that killed his old comrades. Jin studies his face carefully as he speaks. Hector looks quite strong, but there is a nervousness in the tight line of his mouth that he cannot fully hide. It must be a considerably powerful monster. Left alone in the cabin, Jin reads the chronicles at last. All stories begin with the Northern Empire. The king of that empire was blinded by greed and laid his hands on an otherworldly gate, rumored to hold the truth of all creation and immense power. On that day, the calamity began. Powerful monsters poured out of the otherworldly gate and turned the entire North into a demonic realm in just 9 years. In response, humanity united many warring factions to form the Order Alliance. The Order Alliance built a great barrier to stop the spread of the demonic realm. Jin closes the book and rests his chin on his fist. There is a lot of useful information in these pages, but one line has caught in his mind and will not let go. The deeper you go into the demonic realm, the stronger the monsters are. Come to think of it, the beasts kept getting weaker as he headed toward the light. Just how deep inside the demonic realm had he been wandering all this time before he crossed over permanently? And more importantly, just how strong is he in this place? The answer comes to him faster than he ever expects. Hector is limping back through the trees, wounded and bleeding heavily, and hard on his heels charges a pack of gray wolves led by something far worse than any of them. The thing at their head is a werewolf. A hunched, shaggy beast that stands upright on 2 legs, and its wolfish head juts forward, with red eyes burning with rage. Hector fights hard with arrows flying, but the werewolf's claws rake across his ribs, and he stumbles hard onto one knee. He croaks out desperately, telling Jin to run because it is far too dangerous here. Jin bolts outside without thinking. Our boy does not run. He walks straight past the old man with his blade held low and closes on the werewolf without a moment of hesitation. The creature roars and lunges, and the guy leaps into the air to meet it with his sword drawn back high over his shoulder. A strange blue crystalline light blooms along the length of the blade. He swings the sword down only once. The werewolf falls in 2 clean halves. Blood sprays across the leaves, and the werewolf's body crashes limply onto the dirt. Hector stands frozen with his mouth slightly open, staring at the corpse of the very beast he has been hunting for so long. Jin took it down in a single slash. The old hunter can barely find his voice at all. Jin sheathes his blade and turns to face him with an almost puzzled look, tilting his head slightly. He genuinely does not understand what the fuss is about. Then the young man looks Hector directly in the eyes and asks him quietly whether this monster is considered strong around here. For a long moment the forest hangs completely silent. Hector stands frozen where the werewolf died, with his mouth still slightly open and his eyes locked on the split corpse at his feet. He answers slowly that yes, a werewolf is strong, and incredibly so in fact. Jin gives a small nod and shifts his focus toward the tree line, where dozens of wolves are still crouched and watching from a nervous distance. Then he will hear the full details after he deals with the rest of them. The pack has him ringed all around. He sweeps his eyes across them and roughly counts about 40 in total. They do not look that strong on their own, but 40 of them together is just enough to screw him over if he is careless. Instead of fighting every single one of them, the young man decides quietly he will simply slice the throat of the one that looks second in command. Break the leader and their morale shatters with it. His gaze settles on a wolf standing at the very front of the pack. It has an exceptionally large build, with thick shoulders and an intelligent glow in its blue-lit eyes. That single beast is the target he wants. Jin explodes forward in a blur of dark cloak and blue-lit steel, with his blade drawn back for a killing arc, and the wolves behind can only stare in shock. The first one he needs to kill is closing in on him in a single heartbeat. Then the huge red-furred wolf does something none of the others expect from it at all. It turns around and runs. Not a stumble, and not a hesitation, but a full dead sprint away from the fight, and it leaves its own pack blinking in confusion behind it. A smaller wolf beside it lets out a bewildered whine, and then the panic rips through the whole pack all at once. Yelps and whimpers erupt in every direction as the wolves scatter wildly into the trees. Our boy skids to a stop in the middle of the clearing with his blade still raised, and he stares after them as tails vanish between the trunks. Hector stammers behind him that they ran away. Those wolves, who are known for their bravery in this whole region, actually ran away from a fight. Jin lowers his blade and rests his chin thoughtfully on his knuckles as he watches the red wolf disappear into the brush. That wolf sure knows how to assess a situation, he murmurs, with something close to being impressed by the animal. Somewhere far in the trees, that same red-furred wolf pauses on a mossy stone and glances back once with those unsettlingly sharp eyes before slipping away into the shadows. Back at the cabin in the calm afternoon that follows, Hector strings up the massive werewolf hide on a wooden drying rack. He mentions almost offhand that the bounty on the head of the werewolf Jin killed comes out to at least 40 gold coins. Jin blinks a few times, processing that number. He asks quietly if that is a lot of money. Hector replies with a small smile that it certainly is, enough for a man to live comfortably without working for 6 or 7 years straight. The guy's whole face lights up in a slow, dangerous smile at that. Such a high bounty on a weakling. No, and more importantly, if a trash monster carries such a huge bounty on its head, then whenever he is short on cash, he only needs to find and kill similar ones. He can keep raking in huge amounts of money for as long as he wants, and his smile deepens quietly at the thought. Perhaps life here might actually turn out easier than the last 12 years of nightmare hell he crawled through to arrive. Hector stamps a wax seal on a folded letter and begins laying out what Jin will need for the road ahead. He points at each item as he sets it down carefully. The rolled werewolf hide tied with rough cord, a pouch of silver coins and a bundle of travel jerky, and a small folded pioneer map with one location circled in ink. The old hunter tells him to take all of this and go to Pioneer Village at the place marked on the map. He should find a man there named Jacob who will buy that hide off him for a fair price. Jin hesitates and glances between the small mountain of supplies and Hector's weathered face. He asks if it is really okay for the old man to just give him something this valuable. Hector waves the concern off gruffly. Jin killed the werewolf, so he is simply paying the price. He already told him earlier that he had his own grudge against that werewolf too. At the doorway of the cabin, Hector extends his hand for a farewell handshake. He tells Jin quietly that he is thankful for getting revenge for him, and he hopes they meet again if the opportunity ever arises down the road. Jin grips the old man's rough palm with something close to warmth and bows his head slightly in return. He thanks Hector for everything, and that is all he really needs to say between them. He steps out of the cabin and bows once more at the doorway and turns toward the shadowed trees with his heavy pack settled across his shoulders. The path through the outer demonic realm bends slowly toward the light. Somewhere along the way, Jin feels a pair of eyes fixed on him and glances up at a mossy outcrop of rock beside the trail. There watching him from above, with 2 intelligent blue eyes and a bushy sweep of red furred tail, sits the same wolf that fled the pack earlier. It makes no move to attack him at all, and it simply watches him pass. The young man walks on without stopping, and by the time he crests the last ridge, a wooden palisade wall rises tall against the sky ahead of him. "So this is Pioneer Village," our boy murmurs to himself, taking in the tall wooden walls and the smoke curling up from cooking fires beyond. It is quite well stocked for such a small frontier town. He passes through the front gate where armored guards wave him through and steps into a bustle of life he has not seen in what feels like forever. Villagers in simple clothing carry baskets across the packed dirt street and hammer at wooden posts and argue loudly over prices at little market stalls. But as he walks along, every head turns to fix him with a wary and calculating stare. Even the burliest of men shoot him sidelong looks and step back half a pace as he passes them. Everyone here is on high alert around him. Well, it is more than understandable when he stops to think about it. In a world where monsters roam freely, the thing more dangerous than monsters can very often turn out to be other people. He tucks the thought away and slips into the shade of a wooden building, following the sound of laughter and the sharp scent of alcohol. The tavern is easily the loudest place in the whole village and probably the best place to find who he is looking for. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and beer fumes. A stocky bartender leans on the counter and asks if he wants a beer to drink. Jin waves the offer off politely and says he will pass on the drink for now. More importantly, he asks in the same breath, does the bartender happen to know where he can find a man named Jacob around here? The bartender grunts and jerks his chin toward a nearby table. A middle-aged man with a long diagonal scar cutting across his cheek is unrolling a bundle of goods and looking up at the newcomer. He calls out that he himself is Jacob and asks what he can do for the stranger. Jin studies the man's face for a slow second in return. This guy is Jacob. He has the face of a scammer written across every single line of it. Still, the young man keeps his voice level and says he was sent by an old friend named Hector. The old man told him that if he ever met Jacob here in the village, he could sell him a werewolf hide. Jacob's jaw drops open in shock. The peddler blurts loudly across the whole room, asking what he just heard. A werewolf, of all things. Hector actually killed a werewolf on his own. Around them, the tavern goes suddenly quiet, and every single villager at every single table turns to stare at their table. Jin sighs a little internally. It seems Jacob has jumped straight to the assumption that Hector himself killed the beast, and honestly, there is no real need for Jin to correct him about that small particular detail right now. Jacob slides down the bench and eagerly gestures for Jin to open his pack. When Jin lays the rolled hide across the table between them, Jacob's eyes go wide and his voice drops to an awed whisper. It is an actual werewolf hide. The peddler mutters in disbelief, asking if that old man Hector finally did it. Even if he is old, Hector is still Hector after all. A slow, oily grin spreads across Jacob's scarred face at that. The peddler murmurs almost to himself that he always knew Hector could pull it off eventually. Jin waits patiently for the peddler to compose himself and start naming a fair price for the hide. Instead of that, Jacob rises to his feet and reaches down into a nearby crate. He slips his right hand into something dark and heavy inside. When his hand comes back up, it is sheathed in a crude wolf claw glove with 4 long curved steel talons gleaming under the lamplight. He rests those talons casually against Jin's shoulder. Jin asks flatly what the man is doing without moving a muscle. Jacob replies with a smile that has gone completely cold. He tells Jin to get lost while he is still asking nicely and that he might just spare his life today. This guy is a scammer through and through. Faces really do not lie in the end. Jin looks Jacob straight in the eye and asks quietly whether the man has always done business with this kind of intent behind his smile. Hector sent him here trusting Jacob after all these years of trade between them. Jacob only grins wider and tells him to watch his mouth carefully. He simply made an investment years ago, and that is all. Hector was always located too far away from the village, and supplying him honestly caused Jacob real losses over time. Jacob needs this particular hide now to make up for all those accumulated losses. His steel talons press just a little harder against Jin's collarbone. Should he kill this man right here? No, he probably should not go that far today. But he is very, very pissed off about all of this. He has decided he cannot kill a person over something as small as a hide, no matter how valuable it turns out to be. Fine then, so be it. What a shitty bastard this guy is. Be glad he is a nice guy today, of all days. Without any warning at all, he grabs Jacob's wrist and twists the wolf claw glove aside and shoves the peddler back hard enough to send him staggering across the tavern floor. This kid does not know the value of his own life at all. He barks at the thugs behind him to kill Jin where he stands right now and not to let him leave the tavern breathing. The thugs move together as one unit. The first one lunges with a wild battle scream and swings a heavy iron cudgel down at Jin's head. Guys with this kind of attitude probably will not give him any guilt even if he kills them all here. He sidesteps the blow with ease. Another thug roars and brings his blade down in a chopping arc. Steel meets steel with a bright ring, and the thug's eyes go wide with sudden fear. Someone in the back mutters in disbelief that he is strong. And he is fast, another one adds. The second word does not even fully leave the man's mouth before Jin has already crossed the whole room. His curved blade opens the second thug from shoulder to hip in a single clean pass. A third man, all muscle and shaved skull, charges in with a wooden mace nearly the size of his own torso in tow. He swings the giant thing in a brutal overhead arc down at Jin. The guy darts sideways at the last possible instant, and the mace slams down into the floorboards with a boom that shakes the whole building. The thug tries desperately to yank it free from the splintered wood, but the weapon will not budge an inch. Jin flows up his arm and drops the pommel of his sword against the back of the man's shaved skull. The huge thug goes down hard onto the wooden floor. Jin turns slowly toward the last man standing, with blood painted across his own cheek in a thin arc, and lifts his eyes toward him with cold intent. Both of his eyes have gone a low burning red, now catching the tavern's lamplight. He walks forward one steady step at a time. The last thug stammers loudly asking where this monster even popped out from. A fighter this strong in a backwater village should not exist without him knowing the name. There is no way he would not know a fighter this strong. Whatever the man mutters as sweat pours down his temples. At this rate he will die here for absolutely nothing. He tries to break for the door and flee. Jin closes the whole distance in a single breath with his blade already coming around in a horizontal cut, and the third thug drops beside his fallen friends with a wet grunt. Jacob presses himself flat against the far wall with his wolf claw glove trembling badly on his hand. Our boy walks toward him without hurry now. When Jacob lashes out with the steel claws in pure desperation, Jin simply catches his wrist mid-swing and twists it hard the wrong way and drives an open palm straight into his chest. Jacob folds in half and hits the floor gasping for air. Then the wall of the tavern explodes inward with a thunderous crash. Wooden beams shatter into splinters. Villagers scatter shouting in every direction. Standing tall in the shattered gap of the wall, with its tail held high and blue eyes glinting with fierce intelligence, is the very same red-furred wolf Jin has been running into all across the demonic realm. It shakes splinters out of its thick fur and locks eyes on Jin from across the ruined tavern. Then it starts barking loudly at him. The wolf yaps insistently with its tail swishing back and forth. Jin lowers his sword an inch and tilts his head slightly. Our boy says slowly that it is the scout wolf from before. The wolf's ears perk up sharply at the recognition, and it lets out one short, excited yip. Jin's expression hardens again the next instant. He asks the animal flatly if it came here because it wants to die too. The wolf freezes completely at those words. Its lifted ears fold slowly down against its skull, and its bushy tail drops between its hind legs at once. A high, thin whimper leaks out from its chest. It pants heavily with its tongue hanging out, then it slinks a few steps closer to Jin with its belly nearly brushing the wooden floor. Around them, the surviving villagers have gone completely still, watching in stunned silence. Their heads swivel back and forth between the man with the bloody sword and the enormous demonic beast rolling submissively onto its side. What is with this mutt behavior? That is all the young man can think right now. The red wolf pants harder, with its tongue lolling out sideways and its eyes going wide, and pleading in a way no proper demonic beast should ever manage. Do not tell him this guy is what he thinks he is. Before he can finish the thought, one of the remaining thugs regroups behind Jin and comes charging in with a raised blade for one last desperate attack from behind. Jin does not even glance back this time. He simply tells the wolf to bite. The red wolf launches off the floor at the single word. Its jaws close around the thug's face in a single vicious snap of teeth, and bone crunches loudly under the force. Blood sprays across the wooden floor in a sudden arc. The man screams into the fur clamped over his mouth and thrashes wildly as the wolf drags him down onto the ground. Jin watches the whole thing happen without moving a single muscle. A slow, satisfied grin spreads across his own blood-spattered face at the sight. That was some nice work from the wolf. He murmurs this quietly to himself with genuine approval. Blood keeps spraying across the wooden floor as the red wolf worries at the thug's throat with vicious enthusiasm. The man chokes out one last sound before going completely still. His companion, who is the very last thug still standing in the wreckage of the tavern, freezes with wide, horrified eyes. What does he even do now? His brain scrambles for the fastest possible exit. Right, he needs to get out of this situation first. Since this weird bloody-eyed kid seems not too bright, the thug figures he will probably let it slide if he apologizes a few times to save face. He drops to his knees on the wooden boards and lifts his hands high above his head in shaky surrender. The thug wails desperately, begging Jin to spare him and saying he will do anything Jin tells him to do. Jin stands still, with one hand resting thoughtfully on his chin. Then something old and buried cracks open behind his eyes. The begging thug is still on his knees, with his mouth still moving in useless pleas. Then another voice suddenly screams from behind. Jacob charges Jin with a wild slash of a heavy curved blade. Jin does not even blink at the sight, and he is already sidestepping smoothly. It is guys just like the peddler and his hired thugs, he murmurs coldly, as steel rings against steel, who do not know the meaning of true remorse. He redirects the huge man's momentum and slips inside his guard, and drives the point of his sword up through his chest in one clean thrust. The young man turns and slashes once across the man's neck, without hesitation. The body crumples beside its friends, without another word spoken between them. Jin sheathes his blade slowly, and lets out a long breath through his nose. Now then, he says almost to himself, next is that mutt over there. What should he do with this animal? It seems the beast has decided to follow him around for now, but the future is still unclear. He murmurs quietly and genuinely considers this creature now. He asks it plainly if it wants to tag along with him. It lowers its huge head submissively toward his gloved hand and lets him rest a palm on its warm skull. It really does behave more the way a scruffy stray dog would than any demonic beast should. Clever thing, our boy says, with a slow, amused smile. He scratches behind one furry ear and tells it they should get along from now on. He decides to call it Mutt. The wolf accepts the name with a rumbling huff of approval. That night, in a bed Jin has rented at an inn somewhere along the road, our boy sleeps a perfect deep sleep. He wakes to a morning so refreshingly clear that he feels amazing. Mutt is curled up beside the bed with his tongue lolling out. Jin walks over to a basin of water and stares at his own reflection floating on the surface. He has killed a real person for the first time in his whole entire life. It was not just one or two of them, but many. However, why does he not feel any guilt about it at all? Is it because those men were all scum? No, that is not really it. The exact emotion he felt back in that tavern was the same feeling he gets when hunting demonic beasts. It was more than anything else a real thrill for him. There is definitely something new inside of him which is starting to change. Is he perhaps cursed or something? He shakes the thought off with a shrug. Well, he did survive it all, and that is a good thing. One thing at the very least is now certain in his mind. His life here in this new world will be vastly different from his original life. He will not suffer absurdity anymore, and he will live in abundance for once. He will simply enjoy the present as it comes to him. The guy buckles his cloak and shoulders his heavy pack and steps out into the sunlight with Mutt padding faithfully at his side. The road bends onward for hours until a large walled settlement finally rises against the horizon ahead. This one is much bigger than Pioneer Village, with tall stone gates and manned watchtowers along the walls. A wooden sign hanging over the front gate reads 5th Pioneer City. First things first, Jin tells his companion. They need to sell the pelt right away. Mutt should stay nearby and keep out of sight for now. Mutt slinks off obediently into the tall grass by the road. Inside the city walls, the young man weaves through crowded streets until a tall white stone tower rises in front of him, topped with a domed cupola. A young priest with blonde hair and red robes is leaning over a balcony rail, gawking down at the stranger below. Jin walks up to the front door and waits. He asks flatly if this is the Order Alliance. The young priest replies that yes it is once he has scampered down to the entrance. He wants to know what brings Jin here today. Jin unrolls the werewolf hide across the counter without another word between them. He is here to collect a monster bounty for it. The young priest blinks and turns the folded pelt over with 2 fingers, and his brow crinkles into a puzzled frown. He mutters half under his breath that this is just dog skin and this is not a place to pull off pranks. Then he swears in the very next heartbeat as he really looks at it. He stammers out asking Jin to hold on for a second because this is an actual real werewolf pelt. He asks in shock if Jin caught this beast himself. Jin replies calmly that yes, he killed the werewolf some time ago now. The young priest sprints off in a flurry to find someone senior. A while later, an older priest with a graying mustache and a heavy leather pouch in one hand ushers Jin into a quiet back room. The elder priest apologizes with a warm smile for the long wait. Given the amount involved, they had to make sure the pelt was authentic, so it took them a little time. The werewolf pelt is real, and here is the reward for it. He asks Jin to please check it carefully now. Jin loosens the drawstring and pours a small avalanche of pure gold coins across the wood. This is more than enough money to live lazily for at least 6 or 7 full years. It did not feel quite real until he saw it in person. A different kind of trembling from the one he feels when he hunts creeps up his arm. Money is definitely a good thing to have, Jin murmurs quietly to himself. The elder priest coughs politely to draw his attention back. The old priest asks gently if Jin would possibly be interested in taking on another request. He happens to have a small favor to ask. Jin raises one eyebrow at that and repeats the word back carefully, asking what kind of request. The elder priest explains gravely that a monster recently appeared at a nearby quarry and it is causing quite a headache for the whole city. The quarry is far too dangerous because of that monster, so the workers cannot go in to mine anymore. Since they cannot mine any bloodstone at all, now money is no longer circulating anywhere in the city. The entire city is on the very brink of ruin. They say the beast is a monster stronger than any werewolf, but the elder feels confident that Jin here could handle it just fine. Jin asks quietly what kind of monster it is exactly. Its name is Mad Skull, the elder priest replies. It is a monster with a bounty of 70 gold coins on its head. Jin's eyes narrow a fraction at the name. He has read about Mad Skull in the chronicles Hector once let him borrow back at the cabin. But more importantly, Mad Skull is one which he has already faced many times before, back during the nightmare years. It has a hard skull with a heavy helmet welded onto its face, and insane aggression that never lets up on prey. It had toughness and pure strength incomparable to a werewolf. No wonder the city here is struggling so badly against it. It took Jin a whole month to kill Mad Skull for the very first time back then, because he had to die about 28 times in a row before he finally cracked the pattern. The elder priest asks him hopefully if he thinks he can subdue it. Jin lifts his head slowly. Both of his eyes have gone that low burning red once again, and a slow satisfied grin spreads across his lips as he looks the old man in the eye across the table. Of course, our boy says quietly. His next prey has already been decided. The wooden signpost by the road reads Quarry in bold hand-painted letters, and beyond it, the whole valley opens out into a sunken pit of rust-gray stone. Our boy stops on a high ledge and takes it all in for a moment. He has heard that the miners here have not been able to work for a while because of Mad Skull's presence in the area. The gloomy look of the mine creates a chilling atmosphere across the whole basin. Twisted wooden scaffolds lean against cliff walls, and rusted mine carts sit overturned in the packed dirt. It is definitely not a place he would want to stay for long if he can help it at all. It would be best for him to finish this whole job as quickly as possible. Jin steps down onto the quarry floor and starts across the empty ground when a sharp voice calls out behind him, telling him to wait a moment. He half turns his head slowly. A red-haired man in a blue bandana comes striding up between the scaffolds, backed by a whole wall of armored mercenaries at his back. The man says with a carefully polite smile that he is sorry, but could Jin please wait his turn. They arrived here first and were just preparing for battle. Jin's eyes narrow a fraction. They want him to leave simply because they came first. He asks the man flatly, since when is there any kind of queue for hunting monsters? The bandana captain's smile freezes on his lips for a beat. He backpedals smoothly and suggests that Jin could just join their team and they can hunt the thing together as one group. He extends an open hand in offering, trying to recruit him now. Jin turns the offer over in his head fast. If he simply waits for these people to finish first and their mercenary group actually succeeds in the hunt, it would be a huge waste of his own time. But still, he does not really need to fight all of them either. If it is just about the Order Alliance's bounty at the end of the day, sharing loot with a whole mercenary group is not the worst outcome. It might actually be better for him to work together with them for one clean hunt. However, that is only half of the calculation. The guy cannot easily trust the people around this area yet. He says quietly to the man that he seems to have plenty of people already. So why exactly does he want to bring Jin along too? The bandana captain laughs and scratches the back of his head with real awkwardness. He admits it is a little embarrassing, but he prioritizes his men's safety over raw performance every time. He thinks it would be a big help if Jin joined them for this one. Suddenly this captain is speaking to him a lot more formally, Jin notes with quiet amusement inside. As expected, these guys are fundamentally weak against anyone who looks stronger than them. Jin asks aloud why exactly the captain suspects that he is strong. The captain replies with a little nod behind him that the wolf over there would not be following Jin around if he were not strong. Jin's whole body freezes at those words. He looks past the red-haired captain, and there, sitting happily in the middle of a cluster of amused mercenaries, is Mutt. A tall blonde woman in loose green robes is rubbing behind his ears with a bright warm smile. She says gently that since wolf-type monsters are famously known for their strong independence, even the Order Alliance has never been able to tame one before. Jin's mouth thins into a hard line. He told Mutt to stay hidden, so when exactly did he pop out here in the open? The woman adds with a light laugh that they offered him some meat. Mutt is enthusiastically tearing into a whole roasted turkey leg lying right on the ground, a meat dish of this world that even Jin himself has never once tasted before. Mutt licks his chops with obscene blue-eyed satisfaction, then noses the next piece across the dirt for good measure. That Mutt is unbelievable. What does he really take Jin for? Our boy's stomach makes an ugly rumbling sound as he watches this from across the space. Jin mutters something and glances down at his own traitorous gut in mild horror. Why is his body doing this to him right now? Come to think of it, when was the last time he actually had a real cooked meat dish? But a dog was just eating that same exact piece, he tells himself firmly. It was also lying flat right on the ground. Human dignity is at stake here for him. Then a gloved hand offers him a fresh piece of roasted meat from a clean wooden plate. The blonde woman says shyly that if he is hungry she would be happy to share some with him too. Jin blinks up at her in silence. She stands there in the afternoon light with a warm plate of proper food held out toward him and a small hopeful smile. She stands there in the afternoon light with a warm plate of proper food held out toward him and a small hopeful smile. Inside the mercenary group's low tent, Jin sits at a wooden table and finally lets himself eat propitious to him. Savory juices overflow across his tongue, and a spiciness that reminds him faintly of Sichuan cuisine fills up his mouth. It is a taste that simply cannot be compared to the monster meat he ate to survive all those long years in the demonic realm. The blonde woman says brightly that now she thinks about it, they have not introduced themselves yet. The bandana captain thumps his chest with pride at that. He is Jonathan and captain of the Black Marlin mercenary group. The woman gives Jin a small polite bow next and says her name is Claire. Jin answers between bites of food that he is Kim Woo Jin. No, actually he goes by Jin these days. Claire adds gently that if he has any questions later on he should feel free to ask her anytime he needs to. Jin nods with a small dip of his head. Jonathan says warmly that they are pleased to have him along for this hunt. The whole mood shifts sharply an hour later. Jonathan leads the whole group deep into a stone cavern lit by veins of crimson bloodstone glowing softly in the walls. The captain announces to his men that they are here at last and this is where they will fight Mad Skull today. He turns to his crew and starts snapping out orders in a clipped voice. Trap team should set up the nets. Spear team should move to their assigned positions. The mercenaries chorus back and split off into disciplined groups. Jonathan turns to Claire beside him then and asks if they too should get started as well now. Claire replies with a small nod and says they should begin the ritual together. The young man stands to the side and just watches everything closely. Claire kneels on the cave floor and opens a heavy leather-bound spellbook across her lap. Her fingers trace the runes on the open pages, and pale green light begins to seep upward from the paper into the air around her. Symbols and letters lift free of the book and hang glowing in a slow rotating circle around her. Is this actually magic? Jin's eyes go wide, despite himself at the sight. So this is the real magic mentioned in the chronicles. He watches every single movement carefully. Claire chants quietly with both hands raised, asking in her own name for blessings to be sent upon this land now. The spell lands as a rush of green feathers that settle across Jonathan and their bodies together. Jonathan says approvingly that Claire's buffs are excellent, as always testing his own weight by bouncing on the balls of his feet. He turns back to look at Jin. He has about 3 minutes at best today, and 5 minutes at worst. Everyone should stay ready while he goes off to lure Mad Skull here to them. Then the captain sprints off into the dark of the cave with an unnatural speed to his stride. Jonathan, who seemed sluggish and heavy at first, has become noticeably faster now. Magic is pretty cool actually. Jin thinks, watching him vanish around a distant bend. Could he possibly use it too if he learned? His eyes drift back to Claire, who stands calmly beside him, watching the tunnel with her hands folded together at her waist. Another mercenary in a bandana shouts across the chamber to everyone that there is really no time to dawdle here. Mad Skull will be arriving very soon. If even one person makes a single mistake tonight, they could all die together. Everyone should stay sharp for what is coming. Heavy nets are being cranked into position above the chamber floor, driving the monster into a trap and then pouring firepower into it from every side. It is honestly not a bad plan for a group of this size. However, one worry keeps nagging at him. Will this strategy actually work at all against something as strong as Mad Skull? The ground suddenly trembles beneath their boots. Jonathan comes tearing back into the chamber at full sprint, with his feet barely touching the ground beneath him, and behind him charges an absolute nightmare of a boar. The captain yells at the top of his lungs for the trap team to get ready. Mad Skull barrels in on all 4 legs, and it is a huge muscled boar thing with a jagged bone crown for a skull and long curved tusks jutting up from its lower jaw. Its eyes burn a furious hot red. One mercenary gasps out loud that it has appeared, and Mad Skull has finally arrived among them. Jonathan roars at his crew to pull. The nets crash down from the ceiling and yank up from beneath the dirt, catching the huge beast between them from all sides. Someone else yells for spears, and a whole volley of javelins flies from both sides of the chamber. Steel points bite deep into the boar's flanks and shoulders. Mad Skull shrieks in pain fury at them. But then the beast starts thrashing hard inside the mesh netting. The net twists and stretches under the sheer brute strength of the animal. That is not good at all. They are being overpowered already right now. Jonathan shouts at his own men to hold it properly. Someone else wails desperately that there are so many of them here, and yet they still cannot even tie down one single monster. Mad Skull's jaw yawns wide inside the mesh, and its red eye glows brighter with rage. Then the beast rips through the net entirely with pure force. Ropes snap loudly all across the chamber. Mercenaries fly backward through the air across the chamber. Mad Skull tramples forward on its 4 huge hooves and gores the closest men with sweeps of its curved tusks. Blood sprays across the stone floor of the cavern. Claire's blonde hair whips around her shoulders as she stumbles back a step, with one hand raised uselessly in front of her face. She stammers with all the color drained from her face at once. The young man steps in front of her without a single word between them. Mad Skull's massive shadow crashes down toward the two of them together. Claire cries out from behind him, telling Jin it is far too dangerous here. Our boy tells her quietly, without even turning his head to look, that she should not worry about it at all. His eyes go that low burning red once again as he looks up at the monstrous boar bearing down on him, because he already knows exactly how to take down a Mad Skull. The Mad Skull rushes him head-on with the full weight of a moving boulder behind its tusks. Jin sidesteps at the last possible instant and swings his curved blade in a low arc against the beast's flank. Blood sprays into the air. Mad Skull twists its huge head around and snaps back at him with its massive teeth. The guy ducks under the bite by inches. He thought he had already gotten stronger, but this Mad Skull is a different story entirely. It definitely has incredible raw power behind every single motion it makes. His blade barely even scratches the hide when he swings clean at it. The beast roars and swings its skull sideways. The blow catches Jin's shoulder and sends him tumbling across the dusty floor of the cavern. He let his guard down for one whole second, and that was all it took. He rolls back onto his feet and looks up with breath catching in his throat. A shadow of tusks is already coming down on top of him. Then the green feathers arrive. A pale green rush of feathered light streams across the chamber and settles across Jin's whole body from head to toe. His legs suddenly feel weightless beneath him. Claire stands behind him with both hands lifted high and her spellbook open at her feet. She calls out to him breathlessly across the chamber, saying she will help too. Is this a real magic buff? His body feels much lighter than it should feel. It is the same feeling he would get from putting down a 30-kilo pack he had been carrying around the whole time. His mouth curves into a slow, dangerous grin at the sensation. With this, he should be able to hunt the beast much more easily using that method. Behind Claire, the captain and the mercenaries come charging in with their weapons raised for support. Jonathan shouts across the chamber that they will help him too. Jin whips his head around and shouts back with unexpected sharpness in his voice, telling everyone to stay back for now. It really is easier alone for something with a pattern he already knows. Jonathan blinks in surprise but stops in his tracks all the same. The young man turns back to the mad skull with cold calm. To hunt down a mad skull, you only need to know a few key things about it first. Even if it is called a mad skull with all that intimidating naming, it is ultimately still just a large pig underneath everything else. Pigs run fast in a perfect straight line, but turning sharply is genuinely difficult for their heavy bodies to manage. First, our boy will use that one fact against it to stop the beast in its tracks. He weaves in a long curving arc, and Mad Skull thunders after him at a terrifying speed. Its shoulders slam into fallen rock and jagged stone pillars along the way, as it tries to correct its heading and simply cannot. The beast screams as boulders crash down onto its heavy skull from above. It flails helplessly in the rubble. The buff is doing real work right now. The beast is clearly struggling even more just to chase him around. Good, and now for the second step of the plan he has in mind. Jin turns and faces the emerging beast head-on this time around. Its tusks are as long as full long swords, and they serve the exact same purpose as hands do for a human being in combat. But those hard tusks cannot be cut with any sword out there, no matter how sharp the edge might be. In that case, he will aim for its true weak point instead. The nose is the way. He darts in low under the swinging tusks, with his blade rising in a bright silver arc, and the tip of his sword bites deep across the soft cartilage of Mad Skull's snout. The boar shrieks in raw agony as blood sprays out everywhere across the floor. The pain intensifies with every single movement the beast tries to make from now on. It will become too burdensome for the animal to attack him any further. Every time Mad Skull swings its head, fresh pain lances through the ruined nose, and its momentum breaks in half. Jin circles around it, patiently cutting the nose again and again with clean, precise strokes. This Mad Skull will not be getting another chance to attack him ever from here on out. He drives his blade clean through the beast's exposed throat with the finishing stroke. Mad Skull collapses onto its side in a heavy heap and stops moving for good. Jin sheathes his sword slowly and looks around the empty chamber for a moment. Only then does the red glow bleed out of his eyes. Footsteps come pounding from the tunnel behind him a moment later. Jonathan and Claire and the surviving mercenaries burst into the chamber with weapons still drawn tightly. Jonathan breathes out, asking what happened in here just now. Claire adds with urgency that they should find Jin first before anything. They come around a stone pillar and both freeze at the sight in front of them. Mutt is standing over the Mad Skull corpse with his hackles raised, growling low in his throat at the newcomers. Claire whispers with her hand clutching her sleeve, asking if the wolf is telling them not to interfere with him. Jin steps out of the shadows, and Mutt goes silent instantly. Claire breathes his name with obvious relief in her voice. He actually made it back alive. Jonathan looks past him at the enormous corpse behind him and asks what on earth happened to the Mad Skull. Our boy tilts his head with a dry, small smile and says there is not any Mad Skull here anymore. Jonathan stares blankly at that. Jin explains with mild amusement that all that is really left over there is just plain pork now. The whole group stares at him in stunned silence for a beat. One of the mercenaries finally stammers out that it is amazing. He really did all of that entirely by himself. They have never heard of anyone taking down a Mad Skull solo before. Then Mutt's head snaps up and he sniffs the air sharply with his hackles rising again in a slow wave. From deeper in the cave comes a low warning growl, and then a second Mad Skull steps into the light at the end of the tunnel with its red eyes burning brightly. The newcomer growls at them all. Jonathan shouts that it is another Mad Skull. He curses and says so there was actually a second one hiding down here. He orders everyone to prepare for battle right now, but Claire lifts a small hand quickly and stops him. She tells him to wait because that one has piglets running around with it. From behind the female mad skull, 3 or 4 small striped piglets scurry into view around her hooves. They squeal in tiny nervous voices from every side. The mother lowers her head protectively and eyes the humans across the chamber with cautious rage in her expression. Jin lowers his blade slowly and takes one small step backward from her. The female stares at him for a long, tense moment across the chamber. Then she seems to understand something silent between them both, and she turns and shepherds her piglets away toward the mouth of the tunnel. One of the mercenaries murmurs in disbelief that they are just leaving. Jonathan realizes quietly that the mother must have been planning to raise her young here in the quarry all along. Claire lowers her eyes with a small pained expression on her face and says she feels kind of bad about the whole thing now. Jin says softly to them all that he is glad she left peacefully in the end. Night falls over 5th Pioneer City by the time the group finally returns. Inside the warm tavern, Jonathan slaps his hands together and beams at his whole crew. He declares loudly that they did great work today. Without anyone getting seriously injured out there, he cannot even tell them how happy he is that they caught the mad skull. Now then, the captain announces grandly to the room that the true highlight of every good hunt is coming up next. The joy of honest labor, the flower of honest labor. It is settlement time at last. He hoists a heavy leather pouch onto the table, and it lands with a thick clink that draws every eye in the room. Jin glances at the pouch curiously and asks if the reward was not just 70 gold coins from the Order Alliance. Claire counts by eye and frowns thoughtfully at it. This one looks way more than just 70 coins to her. Jonathan tips his head back and laughs loudly. He explains that is thanks to him making a whole fuss over it earlier. It was not just one single mad skull down there today. There were actually 2 of them running around, and even those little piglets scurrying between the hooves. Since the job was much more dangerous than the information the Order Alliance provided them with, he demanded a much bigger reward for the whole crew. A whopping 110 gold coins in total. His men roar with laughter and pound the table with their mugs at that. The young man narrows his eyes slightly at the amount, but they did not actually fight the mother back in the cave, he points out. He asks if the Order Alliance still gave the captain that much money for it. Jonathan says with a wink that he told just a little white lie about the fight. The mercenaries howl with fresh laughter around him. If you do not get caught in the lie, one of them shouts happily, it just becomes the plain truth. These are some interesting people for sure. Jonathan waves them all quiet and turns back to Jin with a broad smile on his face. The captain says warmly that he is thinking of giving half of the earnings today directly to Jin. He asks if anyone at the table has any real problem with that decision. Jin's own head lifts sharply at the offer. Jonathan tells him warmly that if it were not for Jin's help, they all would have died a dog's death down there in the quarry today. So please, he continues, Jin should accept the offer happily and without argument. Since the base reward went up so much, there is plenty for the group to split among themselves anyway, and it is honestly what they all want to give him for saving their lives. Jin scratches thoughtfully at his own chin as he considers the offer. With the buff Claire gave him at the crucial moment, and the trap the whole group set up before he even arrived, they were actually a big help to him after all. Maybe not everyone he meets here in this new world is bad down to the core. He tells the mercenaries with a small nod of his head that he thanks them all. In return for the money, he will pay for all of their drinks tonight himself. The whole tavern erupts in cheers immediately. They should drink up and get properly wasted tonight all together as one. Mugs slam together across the room in loud, rowdy toasts. In the middle of the celebration, our boy notices Claire slipping quietly toward the door of the tavern. He calls after her softly and asks where she is going tonight. She turns back with a small warm smile and tells him she is going to practice some magic outside. Practice some magic, he repeats with genuine interest. Outside the tavern, Claire settles herself cross-legged on a moonlit patch of grass and closes her eyes carefully. A soft blue aura begins to bloom around her sitting figure, and her long blonde hair drifts weightless in the still night air. She really must be tired after that whole hunt. Training right after a full hunt is genuinely impressive of her to do. Magic is really something else. The guy's gaze lingers on Claire's glowing silhouette under the full moon. Should he perhaps try learning it too one day soon? Morning breaks over the village, and our boy stands beside the Black Marlin mercenaries as they haul crates and barrels out into the street. Claire looks up from a heavy chest she is carrying and asks Jin if he really wants to learn magic. She tells him not to worry because she can certainly teach him. Jin blinks a little, thrown by how easily she agreed to the whole idea. Claire adds that she wanted to give him a gift anyway. She reminds him that when the mad skull charged straight at her, Jin was the one who saved her life. Unlike a certain someone, she adds, and then clears her throat pointedly. Teaching him magic is the least she can do. Jonathan bristles from behind his own stack of supplies. He grumbles that any mercenary group whose captain does not even protect his mages would be a disgrace. If some random outsider asked him to teach them, he would refuse without a second thought. But Jin is different. Yep. Claire only laughs softly and tells him that magic is not something you can pick up overnight. And on top of that, they have to leave this village in only 2 days. Jonathan's face lights up as an idea hits him. He blurts out that Jin can just come along with them. Why would a strong monster hunter ever tag along with a bunch of mercenaries, though? Jonathan seems to catch the mood and quickly walks it back. He mumbles that a brave wolf is usually most comfortable alone, and it would be rude for them to intrude on Jin's great journey. Jin stands very still, and in truth he has nowhere in particular to be, but this guy is making him feel the need to save face for no reason at all. A small little lie might actually be the way to go here. Our boy asks Jonathan what their next destination is. Jonathan answers that they are headed to the 4th Pioneer City, where guild rumors say there is a big job waiting. The young man nods slowly and mentions that he was actually planning on going there too, so perhaps he could accompany them along the way. He adds a little sheepishly that he could also learn magic on the road, and that would work out nicely. Claire practically bounces where she stands and cries out that this is such an amazing coincidence. Jonathan claps him warmly on the shoulder and declares that it is great for them to have such a reliable ally with them. Jin says nothing to correct the story. The next destination has been decided. The march begins under a wide gray sky. A massive 6-legged lizard from the Chronicles hauls the group's supplies alongside them, and its heavy feet shake the ground with every step it takes. Jin recognizes it right away as the Tarask, which is the very beast the Order Alliance uses in place of pack animals. He mutters that it is absolutely massive. Jonathan grins from up front and shouts that they have a long way to go, so everyone had better get moving. Nightfall finds the group camped under the moon. Learning something new is always difficult. There are dozens of reasons why learning is hard, but the hardest among them is the one that requires pure repetitive effort. In any task, there are parts where growth is only possible through repetition, and that kind of growth is very slow. In some cases, it stagnates entirely. Repeating the same thing during a plateau is genuinely painful. Jin sits cross-legged with his brow tight and mutters under his breath that this is hard. Then he reminds himself that he is used to this kind of pain. The 12 years he endured to survive in the demonic realm have made him grow even tougher than before. He tells himself to just repeat it until it finally works. That is something he is already used to doing. Then on the 10th day, something inside him clicks. Claire almost drops her spellbook and calls out that Jin just succeeded in feeling the magic. Our boy touches his own chest and asks softly if that was mana. He murmurs that it took 10 whole days just to feel it, and admits that this really is difficult. Claire beams and tells him that honestly, he is a little on the slow side. A lot on the slow side, actually, but it is still excellent. She reminds him that some people with absolutely no talent could go their entire lives without ever feeling the mana at all. Jin quietly takes the compliment for what it is worth. That same night, Claire announces that they are moving on to the 2nd stage. She sets a small basin on a low crate and tips a shimmering blue potion into it from a small flask. Then she turns to Jin and calmly asks him to please undress. Jin stares at her for a long, confused moment. Claire dips her fingers into the potion and begins tracing something down his back. She explains gently that she can inject mana into his body with this. She is making a path. When the glowing circle is finally complete, she rests her palm at its center and tells him she is going to inject the mana now, so he should try to feel it well. The circle flares to life against his skin. Blue light pours through Jin's body, and his skin ignites in a soft, radiant glow. Deep inside himself, he can feel something thicker than blood flowing. The feeling is on a totally different scale from what he felt earlier. Claire asks if he can feel the mana now. Jin nods and tells her that yes, he feels something flowing in his body. She smiles and tells him that he has just taken the first step to using magic. She continues on with her lesson. There are 3 basic stages to learning magic. First is feeling mana, then storing mana in the body, and at last comes utilizing the magic itself. Since Jin has cleared the first stage, they can move ahead. She will control the mana and send it toward his heart. She asks him to use the sensation of holding his breath to create a vessel inside his body to store the magic. The guy murmurs that he is preparing to store the mana in his body. Claire tells him all right and that she will begin. The magic circle roars to life against his back once again. Then the mood around them twists into something wrong. Deep inside Jin's mental world, something ancient and hungry stirs into motion. A wide crimson eye, ringed by dozens of smaller eyes, watches Claire from the darkness. Her breath catches in her throat. She whispers that this ominous energy cannot be real. Her mana is being pulled away and absorbed into him. Her eyes brim with panic as she realizes that at this rate all of her mana will be drained. A blur of red-orange fur crashes into the clearing behind her. Mutt lands between Claire and Jin with a low warning growl. His bushy tail is held low and his bright blue eyes are locked onto hers. Claire gasps his name and wonders if he sensed she was in danger and came all the way here to help her. Jin comes back to himself and stumbles up onto his knees and calls out Claire's name in a strained voice. He asks her if she is okay. Later, sitting with him under the moonlight, Claire's face is pale and drawn tight with worry. She tells him that what she just saw was his mental world. It is what appears when a person's power and nature take a shape and rise up in the form of a world. Because it depends on the life the person has lived, no two mental worlds are ever alike. But for such an ominous presence to exist in our boy's mental world, her voice trails away. She swallows hard and asks him to please answer her honestly. By any chance has he ever eaten an internal core? Jin only tilts his head and asks her what an internal core even is. Claire explains that she means the crystal found inside a monster's body. The young man nods slowly and answers that she means the monster essence. Yes, he has eaten those. Claire's whole body goes rigid at that. She grabs him by the shoulders and demands to know when he ate them and how many. Jin thinks about it for a beat and answers that he started eating them as he hunted monsters, so it has been about 10 years now continuously. If she is asking for a number, maybe thousands, or actually more in the tens of thousands. He blinks at her and asks calmly why she looks so upset. Is there some kind of problem with it? Her voice cracks with disbelief. Of course there is a problem, she cries. Because if a human eats an internal core, they either die or they turn into a monster. Behind her, the moonlight catches Jin's eye, and for just a single heartbeat, one pupil glows a deep, unmistakable red. Deep in the woods, our boy sits shirtless on the ground while Claire's mind races through everything she has ever read in the Chronicles. There is a name for the turbid energy that pools inside the demonic realm, and it is called karma, or retribution. Living beings that absorb it gain bizarre abilities, and a monster core is nothing more than a nucleus that karma forms as it slowly accumulates inside a body. That is not the part that scares her. What scares her is what the Chronicles say about the Dark Priests. When the otherworldly gate first opened, and karma swallowed this world, some humans followed the monsters that absorbed karma and called them angels. Those men ate monster cores. Some even sacrificed other humans to their so-called angels. The world came to call these worshippers madmen. Claire holds all of this behind her eyes and asks herself quietly whether Jin could possibly be a dark priest. She reasons it through carefully. If he were one of them, he would never openly admit to eating monster cores, and he would certainly never let her look inside his own mental world. So no, he cannot be a dark priest, but that only makes his case stranger somehow. Even setting aside the fact that he did not know cores were dangerous, why would any normal person pick up such gross things and eat them in the first place? Jin answers her plainly enough and says that back in the demonic realm he saw other monsters eating monster cores and he just copied what they did. Claire stares at him in disbelief. He truly is a mysterious man. Her face hardens as she comes back to the moment. She grabs his sleeve and tells him that whatever the case from now on, he must absolutely stop eating monster cores. He has just been lucky until this point, but he really could die from this. Jin listens quietly to all of it. What she is saying is that eating monster cores kills you or turns you into a monster, but there is a perfectly fine living witness sitting right in front of her. Her information has to be wrong somewhere. Then a colder thought crawls up right behind that one. But what if her information is correct after all? The fact that he felt nothing after killing people, and the fact that he keeps wanting to fight, could those things be because of the monster cores as well? He gives her a small nod and tells her, well, he will try. Claire almost explodes and snaps at him that he is absolutely going to stop, and he is never eating another one again as long as he lives. She warns him that if he keeps this up, it will not just be his life that gets ruined. He will not be able to use magic either. Jin's eyes widen at that. He asks softly if that is really the case and if he will not be able to use magic anymore. Claire mutters that, of course, this is the part that finally lands, and asks if that is really more important to him than his own life. She sighs and gathers her patience. She explains that in his current state, it will be very difficult for him to use something called mana manifestation, but she tells him not to worry too much about it. He should still be able to use mana arts at the very least. The young man tilts his head and slowly repeats the words mana arts back to her. Days later, the party arrives at the 4th Pioneer City. The place is by far the largest walled city our boy has seen since coming here. Tall stone walls, layered with wooden palisades, ring the whole settlement, and inside the main square a huge crowd of mercenary bands has gathered under a towering statue of an angel. Jin murmurs that there are so many mercenaries here. Jonathan tells him it is too early to be surprised. The size of the request is one thing, but the whole thing is also being overseen by a holy knight. That is when Jin gets his first look at the man in question. A tall figure in white knight armor and a flowing cape stands at the head of the square. Long silver-white hair falls around his shoulders, and his sharp blue eyes are cool and steady. This is Raymond the Holy Knight in charge. Jin can tell at a single glance that this is no ordinary human. The aura around Raymond is on a level nothing comparable to the mercenaries around him. Jin asks Jonathan quietly if a lot of people usually gather when a holy knight is in charge. Jonathan grins and answers that this crowd is here because the request itself comes from the Golden Bug Wolf's estate. Jin blinks once and asks if Golden Bug is some kind of insect-type monster. Jonathan and Claire both stare at him. Jonathan groans that Jin really does know absolutely nothing but hunting. He explains that the Golden Bug is the name given to the greatest businessman on this side of the world. This tycoon named Wolf holds so many assets that he is counted among the richest men anywhere. But recently he died suddenly. Jin asks if he was killed. Jonathan shrugs and answers that there are rumors going around, but nothing is certain. Claire chimes in that if the Golden Bug is dead, one might wonder why so many bands would still gather here at all. Jonathan explains that the Golden Bug left behind 2 sons who inherited his legacy. Someone has to move the 2 sons' fortune inside the Great Barrier, and that is the request being auctioned off today. Jin mutters that moving a tycoon's fortune is no small job. No wonder such a crowd has gathered here. An announcer calls the next name. Jonathan grins wide and declares that finally this is their most important moment. He grabs Jin by the arm and drags him along, blurting out that Jin needs to come with him for a second. Jin can only get out a bewildered response. Jonathan hauls him to the front and gestures grandly. He announces that this is the man who is their group's top power, the one who caught a mad skull and tamed a werewolf. A ripple of murmurs runs through the crowd. Someone whispers asking if this is the rumored head crusher. Someone else mutters that he does not look that strong at all. This whole head crusher business is nonsense. Jonathan whispers hurriedly at his ear, telling him to put up with it for a bit, and things will go well. Raymond's cool blue eyes settle on Jin for one long heavy moment before he finally speaks. His voice announces that the Black Marlin mercenary group is awarded 100 gold coins. They will depart tomorrow as soon as the sun rises, so they should keep that in mind. Jonathan whoops and shouts in celebration. Jin blinks and asks if they really just handed over 100 gold coins purely to move luggage. Jonathan grins and says this is how the field works. Half of the payment is for the labor and half of it is for the name value. That is simply the way the hiring fee is set. He claps Jin on the back and thanks his name value as the head crusher for the great rate. Jin frowns and asks what that even means. Jonathan explains that head crusher is the nickname now firmly attached to Jin. It means he crushes the heads of the monsters he faces. Whoever came up with this name had a truly terrible sense for these things. Jonathan whistles that 100 gold coins is basically hitting the jackpot. Our boy allows a small nod. This level of fame will help him in learning mana arts. Night settles over the mercenary group quarters. Somewhere in the city an arena roars to life. A crowd shouts and cackles for blood, and a broad hulking brawler bellows at his opponent to kill him already. Claire watches Jin fold cloth wraps around his knuckles and asks him softly whether it will really be okay for him to enter the arena. Jin answers that Claire herself said holy knights use mana arts well. His plan is to draw their attention and learn the technique from them. He tells her not to worry too much because he has something in mind here. The guy explains the whole reasoning inside his own head. According to the chronicles, holy knights are the kind of beings who feel real interest whenever they see someone strong. If they acknowledge your strength, you can receive very good treatment, and that first part will not be too hard for him at all. He steps into the arena where fighters wager each other's reputation, and his eyes lock onto the man across the ring from him. He will draw that holy knight's attention right here. The first challenger meets the floor before he can even finish laughing. One clean headbutt and the man drops dead weight. A second bruiser storms in and takes a kick straight across the throat. A third brawler, who is a broad red-haired lump with a wild grin, roars that Head Crusher is living up to his name indeed. Up in the stands, Raymond's cool face sharpens slightly with interest. Good, he has drawn attention, but he cannot be satisfied with just attention alone. The real start is now. To make the Holy Knight take him seriously, Jin needs to defeat many more men. If he beats 2 or 3, Raymond will start wondering where a guy with this kind of skill even came from. But when he has defeated tens of them, and if this Holy Knight is a real knight, he will start thinking a certain way. He will turn to his apprentice knight Rex and quietly order him to fight that guy in the ring. Raymond would want to put his own apprentice up against Jin. Beside Raymond, a young red-haired knight is already watching the arena with a hard stare, and his fingers are tightening slowly at his side. In Jin's read of the moment, Rex would grind out inside his own head that his master wants him to fight a mere mercenary. When that moment finally comes, that is exactly when things really begin. In the stands, the young knight's eyes catch a red glint under the torchlight, and his lips curl into the first shape of a snarl. In the mercenary dormitory, the crowd falls quiet, and Claire and Jonathan share a wordless glance from the balcony above the ring. Rex's shoulders lift with a sharp breath, and he snaps. His voice cracks with fury as he demands to know why on earth this mercenary would refuse the duel. Jin says nothing back to the outburst at all. He simply meets the shout with a flat, unhurried stare. The anger is happening on the other side of a window for all he cares. Raymond steps forward and calms the room with only his presence. The Holy Knight studies Jin quietly, then asks if perhaps he is hurt anywhere. Jin answers without pause that he is not hurt at all. Raymond's blue eyes narrow slightly. He asks why Jin is refusing this duel then. Jin gives him a small, honest bow of the head and speaks. He tells the Holy Knight that he is a mercenary, plain and simple, a mercenary who chases after money and power. Since someone in his position is being asked to fight a Holy Knight's apprentice, he cannot possibly do it for free, so they should make a bet. Raymond considers the offer for a long moment. He replies that for a bet to go through, both sides must have something they want. He asks quite reasonably whether there is anything they could possibly want from someone in Jin's position. The young man grins and says of course. He might not be a grand enough figure to boost a Holy Knight's reputation, but as it happens, he does have one thing worth putting on the table. He lifts a heavy leather coin pouch and admits straight-faced that he owns an ungodly amount of money. Around the ring, the mercenaries burst into wild laughter. One man howls, calling him a crazy bastard. Someone else snorts that he is suggesting to gamble with a Holy Knight who lives and dies with honor. How lightly does he take Holy Knights? Rex, however, is not laughing at any of this. His face contorts with the insult, and he snarls as he shifts his weight forward, ready to attack. Raymond stops him with a single quiet word. Then the Holy Knight turns back to Jin and tells him they do not need his money. Instead, he says they want something else. As for any damages sustained during the fight, both parties should agree in advance to waive all liability. That is what they want. To think he will not have to pay a settlement afterward. He can beat this apprentice up to his heart's content. Jin nods once and tells Raymond that he accepts. As for what he wants in return, he will tell them after the duel is over. The two combatants square up in the ring. Rex's red hair catches the torchlight, and his eyes glow with fresh anger. Jin faces him calmly, with cloth wraps still tight around his knuckles. Around them, the crowd erupts into shouts. Someone shouts to go for it, Head Crusher. Another mercenary yells that he has bet his entire fortune on him. Up on the balcony, Jonathan leans over the rail and tells Jin to give them a signal if things get dangerous. The guy does not even turn his head. He tells them not to worry. Then, without a scrap of drama, he adds that he will win. Rex glances up at his master and asks how far he should go. Raymond gives him a small, steady smile and tells him to give it his all. He adds that this man will certainly not be an easy opponent. Rex answers that yes, he understands. Then he opens his stance, and a rush of golden energy unfurls around his fists. Someone in the stands gasps and asks if that is mana arts. Another mercenary is already shouting for the Holy Knight to win this. Rex kicks off the floor and rockets forward. His speed is on a completely different level from the small fry Jin has been mowing down all night. Jin's eyes widen slightly at the surge of light. This is a refined and powerful force. If he takes a clean hit from something with this kind of power, he could actually die. His lips curl into a hungry grin as he mutters that mana arts is truly interesting. Rex closes the gap in a heartbeat and cracks a punch across Jin's guard. Then he presses forward without letting up, forcing Jin to give ground step after step. As Rex hammers away, he grinds out his own opening speech. He asks if Jin said his name was Jin. Then his voice hardens with knightly pride. Jin might be a renowned mercenary in the demonic realm, but in the end he is just a wild beast. Rex swears he will make him regret looking down on a holy knight. Up in the stands, the mood turns. Someone mutters that the crusher is being pushed back. Another mercenary sighs that even as an apprentice, a holy knight is on a completely different level. A third clutches his hair and groans that at this rate he is going to lose all his money. Claire's face tightens with worry as she whispers Jin's name. Raymond from his own perch only watches. The holy knight's brow furrows slowly. What is this strange feeling? That man back when he fought the other mercenaries earlier did not drag any of it out. He took them all down in one clean strike each, yet his movements right now are extremely passive. Could it be that he actually has something up his sleeve? Down in the ring, Rex builds up another burst of golden mana around his fist and hurls himself forward with a raw roar. Jin's hand snaps up in a blur. He deflects the Holy Knight apprentice's mana arts strike barehanded, and the crowd loses its mind. One man screams that this is insane and that Jin needs to dodge. Another yells that he just deflected the Holy Knight's mana arts with his bare hand. Someone else shrieks, asking whether that is even possible. Jin lets his hand fall and mutters that with this he thinks he is done measuring the apprentice's combat power. Then his eyes sharpen with fresh curiosity. He asks if he should check the man's durability next. His fist snaps forward, and Rex takes it clean across the cheek. Rex barely stays on his feet, coughing hard as blood dots his lip. Raymond's face goes cold at the sight. Rex just got hit by a plain normal punch, and he is making a face with that much pain. The Holy Knight realizes that this man was not waiting for an opening all along. He was just savoring the fight. Jin lets out a soft sound of interest. He notes that he hit Rex pretty hard, yet the apprentice is still enduring it. Is that thanks to his mana arts too? Our boy's grin turns wicked. He tells Rex that he is curious. Just how many hits exactly can he endure? Jin flies in, and the punches come heavy and fast. Rex braces with teeth bared, absorbing hit after hit. Somewhere between blows, Raymond finally steps forward and orders them to stop, because this is clearly Rex's loss. He announces cleanly that they will grant what Jin wants as promised, so they should end this here. Jin lowers his fists slowly with his mouth twisting into a small pout. He mutters half to himself that he was just getting started, and this is really such a buzzkill. But even as he grumbles, the truth settles warm in his chest. His plan was a success. Around the ring, the mercenaries throw their arms up and roar. One man howls that it is as expected of the head crusher. Another yells that he believed in him the whole time. Far across the city, in a very different kind of room, the Golden Bug Wolf's mansion sits quiet under the moon. Inside, two men gorge themselves at a long banquet table piled with meat and wine. This is Derek the Golden Bug's first son, and this is Cedric the Golden Bug's second son. Both are broad and bloated and sweating through their fine clothes. They chew with the desperate mess of men trying to fill a hole no meal can reach. Grease shines on their chins, and their hands shake slightly as they tear at the food. Derek swallows a mouthful and complains that so what it is going to take a full 10 days to get inside the Great Wall now. Those bastards from the Order Alliance. After all the money the family has dumped into them, how in the world could it take 10 whole days? Cedric wipes his forehead with the back of his hand and answers that this is just how those bastards operate. They are always all talk and no substance. Then his voice drops a note quieter. He asks whether the two of them will even be okay until then. Derek's chewing slows to a stop for a beat. He says that there is nothing else they can do. They just have to pray their bodies hold out until then. Under the warm candlelight, both brothers lower their heads and eat harder. Deep inside one of them, unseen by anyone, a strange cluster of glowing blue cells pulses softly in the dark. A slow, wet twitch runs through it, and then another. Whatever is nesting inside the golden bug's sons is very much alive. In a quiet clearing outside the city walls, Raymond stands before our boy in his flowing white cape and lifts his sword. The Holy Knight explains what mana arts really is. It is the art of using mana the same way one would use another part of the body, channeled through muscle and steel to enhance both. Anyone with even a scrap of talent can use it. But depending on one's proficiency, it is said to be a basic technique capable of splitting mountains and seas. Then Raymond simply proves it. His blade blazes with golden light and he calls out the name of his technique. A single arc carves clean through the air and detonates against the tree line ahead. Trees split down the middle in a long roaring line and startled birds explode from the canopy. The whole hillside trembles from one swing. Rex is completely beside himself with awe. The apprentice drops to a knee and gushes that Raymond is simply amazing. He calls his master radiant and the very hope of all holy knights. He asks breathlessly how anyone can be so perfect. Raymond cuts him off gently and tells him to back off. Rex snaps upright and yells that yes, he understands before scurrying to a respectful distance. He tells him to keep up the good work. Jin watches all of that with a slow blink. Something about this devoted little apprentice is oddly familiar. He cannot quite put his finger on it, though a shaggy red-orange shape flickers at the edge of his mind, with its tail wagging. Our boy shakes off the feeling and asks Raymond if that display was really a proper mana art. It definitely looks stronger than what the apprentice knight used against him. But even so, Jin adds that a holy knight of Raymond's caliber should be able to do this much, even without any technique at all. Raymond smiles thinly and answers that he has just shown him firsthand, so he should focus again. Jin nods a quiet yes. The lesson begins for real. Raymond tells him that when he flexes his arm, the veins pop and the muscles contract. That contraction is how one holds mana inside the body, packed tight in the muscle itself. Up to this point, it is all pretty close to what Claire taught him. Then he closes his eyes and reaches inward. His brow furrows in quiet confusion at what he finds. There is already a lot of mana flowing through his body. Since when has he had this much mana inside him? A soft memory drifts up, and it is a calm, light current, gentle enough to feel almost weightless. He recognizes it at once as Claire's mana. Some of it never left him after that terrible night by the campfire. Raymond continues the lesson unaware. Now he tells Jin to gradually consume that stored mana. Moving the body at first can help him get a feel for it. The young man lifts his blade almost lazily. The moment he does, dark purple mana boils up along the edge. Raymond's eyes fly open in shock. Jin is using mana arts right after learning it. But more importantly, what in the world is that ominous mana? The Holy Knight murmurs to himself that mana arts take their color and form based on the influence of one's mental world. But to hold mana this dark and this wrong is something else entirely. He faces Jin fully and asks him quietly what in the world is inside him. Jin gives no verbal answer to that question. He shifts his weight and swings once. The purple slash rips through the air behind him, and two thick trees fall neatly apart. Jin looks down at his own blade. His lack of proficiency must be the reason it feels so inefficient compared to the effort required. Then a slow grin tugs at his mouth. This is genuinely cool. He cannot wait to try it out in real combat. The convoy sets out at dawn. Massive Tarasques haul the long train of supplies, and the two sons of the Golden Bug ride hidden inside their tent atop the largest beast. Claire finds Jin near the middle of the column and beams. He has already mastered mana arts, and it could not have been easy. That is truly amazing of him. Jin tells her that it is all thanks to her. Then his voice softens into something more careful. More importantly, is she okay? When she helped him last time, it felt to him that her mana went inside him and never came back out. Claire looks away with a small pause. She tells him lightly that she is fine. He saved her before, so he should just consider it a gift. The guy does not push it. But there seemed to be too much mana for her to just brush off. Still, thanks to her, he picked up mana arts remarkably quickly. Hooves clatter alongside them as another rider draws close. Rex trots past on horseback and clicks his tongue in mock amazement, muttering that this is unbelievable. Rejoicing over learning just the basics. He looks down his nose at Jin. He tells Jin not to slack off on training. For Lord Raymond to take time out of his day for someone in Jin's position, well, Jin should never forget to be grateful. This guy is really just spouting bullshit. Jonathan leans over from his own mount and grins that Rex is probably still salty about losing yesterday. A dark little smile creeps across our boy's face. This is honestly perfect timing for him. He was just getting bored anyway. He should bruise this apprentice's ego a bit and pick a fight. Before he can move, Rex's horse rears with a wild neigh and throws him hard onto the road. Raymond catches up at once and sighs and asks Jin please to understand. He will keep his apprentice in check. Jin exhales through his nose. What a shame that was. Further up the column, a fresh burst of shouting cuts through the air. The tent atop the lead terrace shakes with the sound of thrown crockery. From inside, the two brothers are screaming at their servants, calling them idiots. One of them roars that he is hungry, so they should bring it faster. Jin glances that way and asks what is going on over there. Raymond rides up alongside him and tells him not to worry about it. It is just the usual power trip from their employers. Jin blinks and asks whether by employers Raymond means the Golden Bug's sons. Raymond nods with a small grimace. Since Golden Bug Wolf's death, the two of them have not stopped themselves from binge eating. If their meals are delayed even for a moment, they throw a tantrum. It will just give Jin a headache if he cares, so ignoring them is the answer. Jin's face does not settle. He asks if it is not a bit too strange to just be stress-induced binge eating. Something about it is off. Deep in his gut, he has a bad feeling about all of this. The more food that disappears into that tent, the stronger a certain awful pressure feels. His head snaps up as the truth clicks into place. Something is very wrong here. A monstrous roar tears through the air. The lead Tarrasque throws back its massive head and howls again. Its heavy body bucks under the tent, and the whole convoy rocks with the shock. Mercenaries scatter as the beast starts thrashing wildly. Someone screams, asking what is happening. Another voice cries out that the Tarrasque carrying their clients has suddenly started rampaging. Raymond's cool eyes lock on the tent as he mutters that it must be the Golden Bug's sons. He turns sharply on his apprentice and barks his name. Rex snaps to attention. Golden mana surges around Rex's blade. Raymond tells him that the client's safety is their top priority, and he should calm the Tarrasque down even if he has to kill it. Rex answers that he understood the order. Then the tent tears open from within. A massive worm-like thing lashes out into the daylight, with its body coiled with slick tentacles and a wide, round mouth ringed with pale teeth, screeching at the sky. Claire covers her mouth in horror and whispers, asking whether that is an abomination. Jin frowns and echoes the word back to her. Claire swallows hard and explains the truth quickly. A human who turned into a monster because of the demonic realm's karma is what an abomination is. The young man repeats the phrase to himself very quietly. A human who turned into a monster. For one heartbeat, his own eye flashes a deep secret red. Raymond does not hesitate for a second. He kicks off the ground with his blade blazing gold and roars the name of his signature technique. A blinding arc of holy fire tears down through the tentacled bulk of the abomination and splits it clean in half. He cries out for Rex to move as the apprentice charges in behind his master's opening with a battle cry. His golden blade cuts across the monster in one hard sweep, and the beast comes apart with a wet crack. For a single beat, the road goes very still. Then the flesh on the ground writhes back to life. The severed halves of the abomination knit back together, with tentacles pulling into place and teeth clicking. Raymond's face goes pale as he shouts that its body regenerated. He tries to call Rex back, but he is too slow. The reformed monster rears up above his apprentice, with its red eyes burning down at him. Rex, still mid-swing, only has time to curse before it strikes. Blood arcs across the dust in one long line. Rex's sword slips from a shaking hand and drops to the ground. Somewhere behind him, Raymond's voice tears open in a raw, disbelieving scream of his apprentice's name. Our boy sees it happen, and his eyes go still. Claire and Jonathan can only stand there open-mouthed as the abomination looms over the fallen apprentice with its wide-toothed maw yawning for the finishing bite. Raymond does not think, he just runs straight at it. His face twists with fury as he grinds out a curse and hurls himself in with his sword blazing gold. He roars the name of his signature technique, and a blinding arc of holy fire hammers straight down into the abomination. The tentacle beast cracks open with a raw screech and its flesh peels apart. Raymond does not stop to check. He scrambles up the ruined coils toward Rex and shouts for him to hold on. His voice cracks as he yells that Rex cannot give up on him now. Tentacles peel back from the wound and lash out. One of them catches Raymond mid-climb and hurls him aside. The Holy Knight crashes to the earth in a heap of white cloak and torn armor. Around the column, the mercenaries panic. Someone screams that the Holy Knight is down. Another one wails, asking whether they are all going to die at this rate. The abomination writhes back into shape, wriggle after wriggle of ropey muscle, and lifts its head to the sky in a ripping roar. Jin does not move for a beat. He stares up at the thing swaying above them and lets the truth sink in. That abomination is a human who turned into a monster. If he keeps eating internal cores the way he has been, will he end up becoming something with that kind of shape one day too? It really does make him think. Then he shakes it off with a small snort. Worrying about that right now will not solve anything. First, he needs to get rid of the abomination in front of them. He darts in low and fast. His blade slashes across a tentacle in a clean cut, but the wound is already knitting itself back together before his boot touches the ground again. This thing has incredible digestion and truly endless regeneration. At this rate, the whole fight is just going to turn into a battle of attrition. He dodges a lunging maw by a hair's width and rolls clear. While he saves his stamina, he needs to find its weakness first. A projectile of hardened flesh spits out of the beast and blurs past his ear. The young man swings and cuts and pivots as he curses at the situation. The pace of the thing is grinding him down. Then a familiar voice calls out from behind him, saying they will help him too. Claire raises her spellbook and pale green light gathers around her. She chants softly and a cool blue glow rolls down Jin's blade and settles into the steel. Around him, the mercenaries who have been paralyzed with fear finally break out of it. Someone shouts that its regeneration is slowing down thanks to the magic. Another orders them to stop the severed pieces from reattaching. A third bellows that they have to pull their weight too, and the Black Marlin men and their allies charge in together. Jin catches sight of them and grins under his breath that they are not bad honestly. He had half thought they would all be scared out of their minds by now. The abomination shudders in place and its rhythm breaks apart entirely. Something inside the meat is shifting and gathering and changing. Jin's eyes narrow as one of the mercenaries shouts that its energy just changed. A pair of red eyes flare open on the beast's twitching shoulders. Then a second pair opens right beside them. Jonathan's jaw drops as he shouts that there are faces on the abomination's shoulders. His voice cracks as he yells that those are the Golden Bug's sons. The twin bloated masks of Derek and Cedric snarl open on the monster's hide. They are sunken and wrong and weeping black sludge from their sockets. Then the whole abomination lunges forward at once. In the same instant, every scrap of severed flesh scattered across the road tears out of the ground and streaks back into its body. The thing swells taller and denser as the pieces slam home. The mercenaries scatter as tentacles rip across the road, and Jin barely twists past a spike that punches clean through the earth where his heart just was. A wet screech splits the air as he cuts a chunk out of a passing coil. He falls back to Jonathan's side, with his cape torn and one cheek bleeding. Jonathan grabs his shoulder and asks if he is all right. Jin nods once and warns him to be careful because that thing just got stronger. Jonathan glances up at the twin sunken faces on its shoulders and asks whether that happened when the Golden Bug's faces appeared. Jin does not answer that directly. Instead, he tells Jonathan and the men what they have to do next. They just have to keep hacking away at it. If they keep cutting, eventually, only the internal core will be left. Jonathan mutters that the problem is its regeneration speed. Then his grin comes back. Jin should not worry about that. Just as the thing got stronger, they have learned its attack patterns too. Jin exhales through his nose and mutters that if Jonathan really says so, then fine. Our boy squares his shoulders and lets the mana come. Dark purple aura boils up along his blade, and the whole road drops a shade darker around him. He tells them that fine, then he will slice it up to his heart's content with these mana arts. The abomination roars and charges. Jin roars back that, here he goes. He blurs into it without warning. The purple blade opens tentacle after tentacle, in long shrieking cuts. and the mercenaries surge in behind him to keep the pieces from crawling back. Bone-white shards of severed flesh clatter over the road with screech after screech of dying noise. The beast can only regenerate so many pieces at once, and Jin is faster than its healing. He cuts a whole coil of tentacles clean off, and Jonathan shouts to stop it from regenerating. Jin spots it then in the middle of the collapsing mass. Deep past layers of ruined muscle, a soft blue crystalline glow throbs against the dark. That is the internal core. He drives his purple blade down through the throat of the thing and buries the point straight into that glow. The abomination convulses once and hard, and then stops moving entirely. Our boy exhales as the light flickers out and mutters that it is finally over. Around him the whole convoy erupts into cheers. Panting and still bleeding, the Black Marlin mercenaries throw their fists in the air and howl. One of them roars that they won. Jonathan wipes his brow and calls out that everyone did great work. Behind them, Claire is helping Raymond sit up, and both of them are battered but alive. Jin gives them a small nod with his chest still heaving. Then his eyes flick down to the ground. There, half buried in the wet, ruined flesh of the abomination, the pale blue internal core still pulses softly. He glances quickly left, then right, checking the crowd around him. No one is watching him too closely at the moment. Very casually, the guy crouches and slips the core into the fold of his cloak. Far back in the trees, someone is watching. A slim figure stands half hidden among the branches, with her cloak dark and hood low. Long red hair spills out from under the hood, and a thin veil covers the lower half of her face. Only her eyes are visible, and they are fixed on the wreckage of the abomination. She sighs under her breath, almost tender. The Golden Bug's sons, Derek and Cedric, were no different from their father at all in the end. Such poor things, really all of them. How could they be so utterly incompetent and useless? Then her gaze shifts across the ruined column. It settles on the man in the torn cloak, crouching alone by the corpse. Her brow lifts in the smallest, sharpest way. Is that the man who fought the abomination, she wonders, and who exactly is he? Her eyes narrow further as she watches Jin's hand come away from the ruined flesh with something small and blue tucked inside it. She asks the empty air very quietly why he is taking the internal core. Our boy tightens his grip on the prize and walks off into the tree line with his cloak wrapped close around what he has stolen. Deep in the night, the camp lies quiet. Claire and Jonathan and Raymond sleep by the dying fire. Our boy sits alone in the dark just beyond the light. In his palm, the internal core he stole from the abomination pulses with a slow blue glow. Jin turns it over once, then brings it up to his mouth and bites down. 2 dry crunches and a low grunt later, the shell splits. The moment the shard cracks between his teeth, the forest around him falls away. He is standing inside a memory that is not his. Torchlight flickers on stone walls, and on the cold floor at his feet, a blond man lies bound at the wrists and ankles. This is one of the Golden Bug's sons. It must be somebody's memory. Another body is chained beside the first with the same slack, terrified face. A soft, feminine voice slides into the memory. The Tide brothers try to buck against their restraints as the veiled, red-haired woman circles them in the torchlight with a wineglass in hand. She tells them coolly that the fact their father Golden Bug died is simply the result of his own incompetence. So if they want to live, they will show her results. Then she leans down and murmurs for them to show her how special they really are and whether they are worth joining her. She lifts a glass filled with a black oily liquid, and 1 drop at a time she tilts it into their bound faces. The brothers thrash and gargle against their restraints. Then they scream as the potion takes hold and their bodies begin to warp. Jin snaps back to the campfire. He staggers 3 steps and doubles over and heaves into the leaves. His hands brace against his knees as he pants hard. Somewhere at the back of his skull, an old warning bell is ringing. It happens very rarely, he reminds himself, but eating an internal core can grant you the power of the monster you took it from. Sometimes on top of that, it can also make you absorb the monster's memories, along with the power. Our boy wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. Come to think of it, these internal cores are absolutely full of side effects. He pieces it together fast. That memory just now had to be from one of the Golden Bug's sons. They turned into abominations after something was poured into their eyes. Claire has already told him that abominations are made when humans are influenced by karma, which means the liquid that woman used had to contain karma itself. His whole stomach turns cold at the thought. In that case, that woman must be a dark priest. Footsteps rustle in the underbrush behind him. Claire steps out of the trees, looking worried, and tells him that they need to get moving now. Then she catches sight of his face and her voice sharpens with alarm. She asks why he is sweating so much. Something bad must have happened here. Then her hand flies up to her mouth in real fear. She asks him to please tell her he did not eat another internal core just now. Jin's mind spins for a beat. Should he tell the others about the memory? But how would he even begin to explain that he saw a monster's memory as a side effect of eating a core? Saying unnecessary things might just cause a misunderstanding. He straightens up and wipes his mouth again and tells her not to worry because it is nothing. He will just keep it a secret for now. Somewhere in the tree line, another set of eyes watches them go. The red-haired veiled woman stands half-hidden among the branches, watching Jin's back retreat down the path. She wonders whether that man is plotting something. To think that someone who eats raw internal cores is somehow doing the same work as the Order Alliance. She smiles thinly under the veil. She is honestly a little curious now. When she meets that man again, will they be allies or will they be enemies? By mid-morning, the party stands at the edge of a windswept cliff. A pale stone marker with a simple cross has been driven into the earth. This is where they will lay Rex to rest. Raymond kneels alone at the head of the grave with his hands folded and offers his prayers. His voice is soft but steady. He says that Rex was braver than anyone and that he dedicated his entire life to peace. He asks that Rex be watched over so that this life's passing is not in vain. Jonathan and Claire stand quietly behind him. Jin bows his head with them. He and the apprentice only ever dueled once, but the guy really did look young, and that is truly a shame. A soft rustle in the brush makes Raymond lift his head. His eyes track something moving through the trees, and then his breath catches sharply. He whispers, asking if that is really a red wolf. Sunlight glints off the red-orange coat and the pale blue eyes as Mutt trots into the clearing with the same familiar swagger he always has. Raymond drops to both knees and lowers his head reverently. He calls out that he gives his deepest thanks. The young man turns to him with a raised brow and asks what he is doing all of a sudden. Raymond explains that he is expressing his gratitude for the comfort of Ie, the god of harmony. By his order's teachings, the red wolf is considered the closest companion of Ie herself. The fact that a red wolf has appeared at Rex's grave now means that Ie is comforting them. Jin blinks slowly at all of this. He clears his throat and points out that this is just his pet mutt, though. Raymond's face darkens, and he snaps out that this is pure blasphemy. How dare Jin call a sacred red wolf a mutt? On top of that, this species of monster is not something that can be tamed by anyone. Jin sighs patiently at the whole thing. Raymond does not believe him at all. He turns his head and calls out casually to Mutt to stop acting out and come here already. Mutt's ears prick straight up at the voice. His pale eyes flare a familiar red. Then the wolf breaks into a heavy gallop straight for Jin, growing broader and taller with every stride. His full battle form barrels into the clearing behind our boy, and it is a moving mass of muscle and fur. Raymond's mouth falls open in disbelief. He chokes out, asking how this is actually true. The red wolf is a monster that even the Order itself could not tame. How could a mere individual manage it? Jin scratches Mutt behind the ears and shrugs. He just killed a werewolf one day, and this one has been following him around ever since. Raymond can only croak out a single bewildered sound. What in the world is this guy? The Holy Knight recovers slowly, then turns to Jin with something almost shy in his expression. He asks if he may request a favor of Jin. Jin tilts his head with a small question of his own. Raymond takes a careful breath before speaking. If the red wolf does not already have a proper name, he asks Jin to please name him Rex. He explains himself carefully. For one thing, taking a monster that his order considers sacred and calling it Mutt is a bit inappropriate on every level. And secondly, with the single-minded resolve to purify the entire demonic realm, he wishes for Rex's will to not end here today. The apprentice fought against evil and did not let go of his sword until the very last moment. So please, Raymond asks, let that red wolf carry on the boy's legacy under the name of Rex. The guy looks down at the huge red wolf leaning warm against his hip and murmurs that Rex's legacy is something worth carrying. He crouches a little and looks Mutt right in the eyes to ask if he is okay with that. The wolf tilts his head and thinks about it for one beat and then gives a slow considering huff. Our boy exhales through his nose and tells Raymond that in that case he understands. He will name him Rex from now on. Raymond bows his head deeply and murmurs a heartfelt thank you. A rustle of gravel scrapes at the edge of the clearing as a new voice cuts across the moment. Someone chuckles and asks if this old man happened to appear at a bad time. Jin turns sharply with his hand drifting toward his blade. Two figures step out from between the boulders. One is a younger monk in white and gray robes. The other is an elderly man wrapped in an orange sash and a heavy string of prayer beads. His bald head is bright, and his white beard reaches his chest. A small orange kerchief is knotted around his brow. He plants his staff in the dirt and studies them mildly. This is Bao the Elder of the Third Pioneer City. Bao bows his head to Raymond first and apologizes for visiting during such a grieving time. Raymond tells him it is no imposition and asks what brings him here. Bao's tone stays gentle, but the words land heavy. He explains that an investigation is needed regarding the deaths of the Golden Bug's sons. Our boy stiffens at that, and Bao's next line only makes it worse. The elder asks if they still believe those deaths were the work of these people, and Jin realizes with a cold pull that he is one of the people being talked about. It makes sense when he thinks about it. The clients died while the mercenaries were transporting a fortune, and suspicion always falls on the ones who lived. Raymond speaks up on the group's behalf, confirming that he has already submitted plenty of evidence clearing the mercenaries. Bao lifts a hand and lets a single word hang in the air. However, there is still the matter of how those two men ended up as abominations. Nothing has been revealed yet, the elder murmurs, and he can smell the stench of a dark priest all over this incident. Then he turns his sightless face precisely toward Jin and asks the question that changes everything. What does Jin think about all of this? Jin's blood turns cold. The elder knows his name. The way Bao says it makes clear this is no polite greeting but a test. Jin asks flatly if the elder is suspecting him of being a dark priest. Bao does not deny it. That is how Jin ends up standing at the Vritra arena with his hands loose at his sides, listening to the elder lay out the case against him. Bao says that people who grow this strong usually show their talent from a young age. But Jin appeared out of nowhere one day and started pulling off one massive feat after another. On top of that, he happened to be at the center of the abomination incident. The elder asks if Jin himself does not think that looks suspicious. The young man cannot really argue with any of that. People around here clearly keep tabs on the strong, he mutters, and in that light, of course, he looks shady, especially since he is not from this world in the first place. Still, none of that explains why he has to fight the elder. Jin points that out plainly and asks what sparring has to do with any of this. He simply cannot understand it. Raymond agrees at once, telling Bao the mercenary just came off a battle and his body is not in perfect condition. Another voice at Raymond's side echoes the same concern. Bao only chuckles and asks, so what? He asks if they are refusing to cooperate with the investigation. Raymond mutters that the old man is completely unreasonable, and Jin has to admit the trap is neatly set. He cannot exactly beat down a monk who suspects him of heresy without proving the suspicion right. Plus, picking a fight with a frail old man would look terrible for him. Bu reads all of that from Jin's stillness alone. The elder teases him gently, asking if he is worried simply because of his age. There is no need for concern, he says. The reason he rose to the position of elder was purely due to his own strength. Then the old man moves. He is fast and impossibly so for a man his age. Jin barely registers the blur before the great bell strike rings out. The impact tolls through his chest, and the guy staggers back with a groan. Raymond calls his name, warning him not to drop his guard for even a heartbeat. The Vritra monks are martial artists of terrifying combat strength, he says, and the elder is the strongest of them all. Bao just laughs and asks if Raymond is being a little biased. If they keep taking his side, the old man warns this jealous old fool might lose control of his strength. Then he presses in again. Jin catches the follow-up strike with his bare hands. Bao's face lights up in delight, and somewhere behind them a stunned voice marvels that he caught the blade bare-handed. Jin barely notices any of that. That hurt a lot, and worse, the old man landed on the exact same spot where the abomination had wounded him. Then he freezes in place. Wait a second here. His body is completely healed. Those wounds from the abomination should have left him bedridden for at least 2 weeks, and even the fresh damage from the elder's strike is knitting itself back together in real time. Did eating that monster's core give him the abomination's regeneration too? He almost laughs out loud. This is a total jackpot for him. Delighted breath. The elder chuckles and says he calls this being injured from battle. Jin sure knows how to get an old man fired up. He would love to spar longer if the rules allowed it, he admits, but he cannot afford to keep acting so childishly. Now that he has confirmed the rumors of Jin's strength, it is time for the next step, namely using his mind's eye. A golden ring of light blazes across Bao's forehead. Emptying oneself, the elder tells him softly, is the way to become truly one with yourself. He gave up his 2 eyes for the mind's eye to open his 3rd eye. It is an eye that pierces down through the essence of the soul. Now he asks Jin to show him whether he is a dark priest or a rising new light. The reach of that gaze plunges into the landscape inside our boy. Bao finds himself standing in a forest of shadow, with red-eyed beasts prowling between twisted trees and malice thick enough to choke on. The old man commands them to be gone, trying to shove the vision back with his own light, but the beasts refuse to yield. Bao whispers in quiet shock at what he is seeing. The guy is at his side in a heartbeat, asking if the elder is all right. He cannot even sense Bao's mana anymore. Bao admits that a mental world going past unpleasant and straight into terrifying is a first for him. Still, it has not completely collapsed, which means Jin is not a dark priest, which means the elder can move on to the real reason he came. Bao bows his head to Jin and asks his forgiveness for the rudeness. Verifying whether he was a dark priest, the elder says gently was incredibly important. Jin blinks at the sudden humility and asks what all this is about. Bao tells him plainly. It is because he wants to entrust Jin with a quest related to the dark priests. Then he says the words that open the next door. A new figure steps into the room. She is young and no older than her late teens, with a poised bearing that says money and old family. She dips into a formal bow and tells him it is a pleasure to meet him. When she straightens, she introduces herself. She is Cindy, the youngest daughter of the Golden Bug. Our boy stands very still as Bao's words from a moment ago finish landing. The elder wants to entrust him with a quest related to the dark priests, and this young heir is the person on the other end of that request. They do not stay indoors. Bao and Cindy and Jin walk together into the forest because the elder means to show him rather than tell him. Cindy explains as they walk that this is not the first time an abomination has appeared, but recently something is very wrong. With the 3rd pioneer city as the epicenter, more and more people have been turning into abominations. Even the surrounding forests are rapidly becoming corrupted into demonic realm. Jin frowns as he takes that in. They are becoming corrupted, he repeats quietly. Cindy says they have arrived. Jin lifts his head, and the sight ahead punches the air out of him. A jagged mass of glowing violet crystal rises from the earth, and it is huge with a pressure that presses against the skin. Cindy tells him what it is. This, she says, is what they call a rift core, an object that spreads the demonic realm. Wherever one appears, the land around it slowly turns into demonic ground. At the crystal's base, robed priests are already at work. They kneel in a wide circle with hands lifted and heads bowed in prayer. Golden light gathers over their heads as the chant rises. It is beautiful and slow and clearly exhausting for them. Jin watches without speaking, then finally lets his thought out loud. Purifying a rift core, he mutters, does not exactly look easy. But he wants to understand why this is even happening here. The power of karma was supposed to weaken the further one traveled from the Northern Empire, he points out. Bao nods and confirms that is correct. So for something to be blooming right on the 3rd pioneer city's doorstep, our boy presses that means something specific. Cindy answers plainly enough. It means there is someone behind it. Jin's blood cools by a degree. A dark priest is behind all of this. Cindy nods once and lays out the stakes without flinching. If the number of abominations and rift cores keeps rising at this pace, the 3rd pioneer city will face great danger. A city they have worked so hard to build. In the worst case, they could lose the entire city. That is why they meticulously tried to find the dark priest's hideout, Bo tells him softly. They have finally pinned down the suspected location of the base. So, with that said, the elder goes on and asks whether Jin would join their extermination operation in 2 weeks. He will be compensated at the highest level of pay. Jin's face stays neutral, but inside our boy is quietly stunned. So this is what they wanted to hire him for. Bao, the elder of the 3rd pioneer city. Cindy, the last living descendant of the Golden Bug. A request from people at that level. He has finally been acknowledged, it seems. Later, out on a cool green field, far from the crystal, Claire lets out a long, relieved breath. She tells him not to even mention it because she was so worried. If you get framed as a dark priest, death is a given, and she heard they brutally torture you first. Jin blinks at that. They would torture him. Something less brave curls in his gut at the thought. Then Claire lifts her head and points ahead. They have finally arrived, she says. Below them stretches something Jin has never seen. A stone wall so long it disappears into the horizon, and behind it a city on a scale that dwarfs the pioneer cities completely. This is what they mean when they speak of the city behind the walls. This is Wall City Yurgis. On a scale that is incomparable to the pioneer cities, it is the safest place in this world. The young man looks at it for a long moment. Will he be able to live here someday? However, now is not the time for that. At a rest stop just outside the walls, the mercenaries flop down for a short break, and some of them are already snoring against their packs. Jonathan pushes himself upright when Jin drops the news, and his eyes go wide. He asks in surprise if Jin is leaving for the third pioneer city. Jin confirms it plainly and says he has picked up a new request. Jonathan protests that it is so sudden, then trails off. He knows how this business works, he admits. Going separate ways after a job is done is how it goes. But it is always a bit sad. Jin agrees and says he is right. He asks what the rest of them will do now. One mercenary declares he will have some drinks, then drink some more. Another one echoes it, saying the same thing. Our boy just about rolls his eyes at them. Those guys are really something. He turns to Claire. He asks what she will do. Claire admits she will have to look for another job. Jin points out that she made a decent payout this time. She agrees it was decent, but says she is still far short of the money she needs to attend the magic tower. Jin repeats the name back to her. She explains it plainly. She calls herself a mage, but in the end she has only gathered common knowledge, so her skills are barely past beginner level. Making a living is not the problem. It is that she has gotten greedy and she wants to learn higher class magic. That is why she is saving up to attend the magic tower. You can learn higher class magic there, she tells him. Jin asks if the magic tower is something to a magical university. Earning money just to study, he adds softly. That is admirable of her. He steps away for a moment. When he comes back, he is holding a heavy embroidered pouch that clinks with every step. He asks her if this will be enough and holds it out to her. Claire stares at the pouch, then at him. She starts to ask what he means by this. He tells her it is to help her get to the magic tower. Her eyes widen in shock, then fill with embarrassment. She says quickly that there is no way she could possibly be that shameless. How could she accept that from him? The guy does not budge. He is not just giving it away for free, he tells her steadily. He is giving it because he is indebted to her. She should consider it a gift. Jonathan whistles quietly at the size of the pouch, muttering that it is a huge amount. Claire keeps trying to refuse, saying that for her to just take this from him is too much. Jin turns to go. He will see her again, he tells her simply. Claire's eyes fill, and her voice comes out very small. She thanks Jin and promises she will definitely repay this favor. Bafri Danai boy calls back over his shoulder, telling everyone to take care. He walks past the row of mercenaries. Behind him, Jonathan gently catches Claire by the arm before she can chase after him. She stares after Jin with tears in her eyes, holding the pouch tight to her chest. At the edge of the gathering, the red wolf pads forward and pauses. The animal tilts his head with curiosity. Standing quietly to the side is Raymond the Holy Knight, who lost his young apprentice not long ago. His one visible blue eye softens when he lowers himself to the wolf's height. He murmurs the name Rex and looks at the wolf for a long moment, the name his dead apprentice used to answer to. He tells the wolf to take care too. Jin walks on without looking back. The sun bleeds gold across the field, and beside him the wolf lopes along in easy step with red fur catching the light. Down in the courtyard of the third pioneer city, Jin walks past the training yards with a small sack over his shoulder. Up on the battlements above him, two figures track his movement. Cindy is the one to speak first. She reminds Bo lightly that he said nothing would happen, but seeing the elder come all the way out here to watch, he must be a little worried. Bo blinks at her and asks what she is talking about. She does not indulge him. She is talking about that mercenary. The elder said it himself that Jin seems to have eaten a monster core. Bo continues carefully and says that just because he ate a monster core, it does not seem right to consider him a dark priest. Cindy snaps at that. She tells him he is saying something incredibly dangerous. If you eat a monster core, you become intoxicated with power and lose your sense of self. That is basic common sense. Cindy closes her eyes and lets a longer breath out. She addresses him softly, not as elder but as master. She asks him to please tell her honestly. Does he still hope that a certain someone, the one the elder only ever calls that guy, still has his humanity left, and is that why he is protecting Jin? Bao does not answer for a long moment. Then he sighs and admits, half smiling, that he really does not want to have this conversation. Cindy dips her head. She apologizes if she was disrespectful, but she wants him to keep something in mind. She will keep this a secret for now. If Jin ever does anything wrong, though, she will frame him as a dark priest. If that happens, the elder who recommended Jin will not be safe either. She turns without waiting for his reply, with her cloak flaring behind her as she walks away. Alone on the wall, Bo lets his gaze go long across the plains. That will not happen, he tells himself. Jin has already consumed numerous monster cores. He has become unimaginably strong. Yet despite all of that, his mental world has not collapsed. That is the proof right there. The proof that a person can maintain their humanity even after eating monster cores. The world simply is not ready to accept Jin yet, so the elder is keeping this fact a secret for now. He is certain of it. The power that young man possesses will bring great hope to this world. Days pass after that conversation. A long column of infantry moves across the plains under order banners, with spears bristling and boots hammering the earth in slow, ordered rhythm. This is the first expeditionary force come to purify the corrupted land around the third pioneer city. Somewhere in the ranks, a paladin's voice recites the old scripture over the marching. He speaks of how just as there is a time to love and a time to hate, if there is a time for peace, there is also a time to fight. Their God pointed to his hands, the passage goes on, and commanded him to hold a sword, and pointing to his heart, their God told him to annihilate evil with faith. Then a wet crack of steel meeting flesh interrupts the reading. A young soldier stammers in shock. A tentacled abomination has been quietly dragged out of the ranks and beheaded. Standing above the twitching corpse, still counting softly under his breath, is our boy. 596 he counts. Then 597, then 598, and 599, and 600. Jin does not notice any of that. Inside his head he is running his own diagnostic. This is that special ability he obtained after a long stretch of eating monster cores. It is regeneration, of course. To heal a simple bruise took him around 10 minutes. The fracture he got from the abomination healed in about 2 days. Then, if his arm got cut off, would it regrow inside a month? Yeah, this is exactly why he eats monster cores. He wants to try this in actual combat right away. He is still visibly smiling to himself when a new voice cuts in from behind him, warm and amused. The voice remarks that it heard his nickname is Head Crusher and asks if that was about crushing his own head. Our boy startles and turns. The man behind him is tall and lean under polished white and gold armor. Wavy red-orange hair falls loose around a long, handsome face and a mischievous half-smile. This is Roland, the Supreme Commander of the 1st Expeditionary Force of the Order of Harmony. He waves Jin's alarm off apologetically, saying he did not mean to startle him. He simply had something he wanted to try. Then he grins wider. He says that he really does enjoy geniuses. Geniuses are supposed to be completely messed up in the head. A mercenary personally recommended by Elder Bo has to be an incredible genius. Out loud, he steers the conversation back to business. More importantly, he asks what the plan is. Roland cheers that it is spoken the way a true genius would say it, and that Jin is impatient. Then the commander gestures for his officers and lays it out plainly. They are heading to the forest north of the 3rd Pioneer City. First, they will clear out the rift cores in front of them and cut a path deeper toward the center. They will not know the true duration of the fighting until they arrive, but the goal is to wrap it up inside 10 days. The young man frowns. That forest should not be that big, he says. 10 days sounds too long. Roland laughs and says it is as expected of a genius. Yes, normally 10 days would be a long time, but he goes on evenly, and just as he says it, a wet-toothed head lunges out of the tree line. Roland is already moving. His blade cuts the beast down in one long stroke. Because of the rift cores, he continues without missing a beat, despite having just butchered a monster mid-sentence. The monster's territory has expanded. A soldier calls out to him, shaken. Roland shakes the gore off his blade. The kinds that usually live deep in the demonic realm are popping out into the sunlight. He shrugs. So 10 days is actually a short time for all of this. Something huge and eyeless bursts up from underground with its tooth-crowned maw wide open. Behind it, a dozen more shred up from the soil. Roland roars for everyone to prepare for battle. Jin recognizes the things at once. They are leech rats. Have those things always been able to dig underground? He does not get to finish the thought because the pack is already on them. Roland shouts to his soldiers to keep their backs covered while they fight. If they show their backs to these things, they are dead. Steel clashes with slick flesh across the whole column. Roland catches sight of Jin still standing loose in the middle of the swarm and shouts across the fighting, telling the genius to watch out. The guy's eyes flick sideways. A leech rat is already lunging for him. Roland is staring at him now. He yells across the battle, asking what Jin is doing and if he is crazy. Because Jin is not fighting the way a man defending himself would fight. He is fighting the way a butcher clears stock. He grabs a leech rat by the throat and considers it with quiet interest. Inside his head, our boy is already doing the math. If he eats all of these guys, he would inherit the leech rat's abilities. He does not really think he needs the ability to dig underground, but hey, this is a problem though. Because right now, the monsters swarming him in the middle of the ambush do not look anything close to monsters anymore. They only look to him now as walking monster cores. The leech rat core cracks open between Jin's teeth and a cold blue glow slides down his throat. Our boy chews slowly, listening to his own body for any shift. Inside his mind, he runs through the rule the same way he has explained it to himself 1,000 times before. Inheritance happens when someone consumes a monster core, and there is a very low chance of gaining that monster's skill. This is the real secret to how he managed to survive the demonic realm for 12 years. He grabs another leech rat off a soldier's back and swallows another core. He mutters that he is starting to get full. He thinks he has stuffed his face with about 40 of them by now. He should have gained a digging ability by this point. The next leech rat lunging for his head interrupts the thought. Jin twists at the last second and catches the beast in one hand and puts it down flat. Nearby, a soldier calls out asking the mercenary if he is all right and telling him that what he is doing is dangerous. Jin waves it off. He tells them he is fine and to maintain the formation. Then he grits his teeth. He cannot secretly eat monster cores out in the open. Then another voice calls out, telling everyone not to worry because they are safe now. The holy choir has started their performance. Jin lifts his head at that. At the edge of the field, Roland has already unslung a pure white violin from his back. He tucks it under his chin and closes his eyes and draws the bow across the strings. 2 other performers step up alongside him with cellos. Musical notes drift outward on the wind, gathering around the soldiers ahead of them. The tune is calm and unhurried and unmistakably sacred. The infantry roar back to life. One of them shouts that he is overflowing with power. Jin watches quietly stunned at the sight. The soldiers' stamina and defense have shot up in real time. Are they receiving buffs from the holy songs? And then more importantly, that Roland guy he thought was a swordsman is actually a supporter. Roland's eyes stay closed as the melody rises. His armor glows faintly beneath the sunset light. Then his voice cuts across the field, resonant enough to shake the air. He calls out to all troops that it is time to counterattack. The whole line surges forward. Steel meets slick flesh. The leech rats break. That night, under a bright moon, the wagons roll back through camp with the wounded and the dead. An officer calls the survivors together. He announces that they will be recording each person's performance. The recorded results will reflect their reward payouts, so they should cooperate. Off to the side, a pair of soldiers watch our boy digging in the dirt with confused looks and gossip about him. One whispers that he seriously just cannot figure this guy out, smashing his own head with a rock and charging straight into the middle of the monsters, and now he is digging in the dirt. Jin is not listening to any of that. He is on his hands and knees, scraping at the earth in frustration. He mutters that he really did not gain the digging ability after all of that. So, it turns out that gaining an inheritance really does require luck. A familiar voice calls out behind him, asking if his body is doing all right. Jin straightens up and greets Roland. Roland waves apologetically, saying he is sorry if he startled the mercenary earlier. Jin tells him it was nothing at all. Roland tilts his head in genuine admiration. He says Jin's fighting today was impressive. Honestly, when Jin jumped straight into that horde of monsters, Roland thought he was going to die. But Jin proved himself with the results in the end. In fact, he heard Jin hunted 267 leech rats all by himself. The average soldier only took down 4 or 5. Even the holy knights sat around the 100 to 150 mark. So prodigies really are different. Jin's smile does not quite reach his eyes. Prodigy, his foot is right. If he had just focused on hunting instead of stuffing his face with monster cores, the numbers would have been completely reversed. Out loud, he changes the subject. He asks Roland if he was part of the support force. Roland blinks and asks why. He wants to know what about it and whether Jin is looking down on supporters. Our boy shakes his head. He just thought Roland was someone interested in raw power. So he was surprised, because this was not what he had expected from the commander. Roland coughs with embarrassment but smiles. Well, Jin saw right through him. In his heart, he is the kind of man who wants to wield a sword too. Then shouldn't he just wield one? Jin asks flatly. The thing is, Roland answers quietly, and his tone shifts to something warmer. The reason the Order Alliance fights is for peace. Countless people have lost their homes and are dying because of the demonic realm. In a world with that much suffering, he chose the role where he could be of the most help. His swordsmanship is only slightly above average, but his musical skills are considered top tier even within the Order Alliance. The young man turns that answer over inside himself. When Roland kept babbling about prodigies earlier, he had thought the man would be annoying. But Roland turns out to be a much more decent person than he had thought. Jin asks if Roland could show him his performance sometime. Roland grins broadly and says, yeah, sure. 1 week later, the Vanguard has been chewing its way deeper into the demonic realm, destroying rift cores as they push. Kobolds swarm the outer edges. Large-eared tusked things that are closer to true goblins come snarling out of the trees the deeper they go. In the commander's tent, Roland folds his arms and admits it plainly. He tells his officers that it is definitely true. The deeper they go, the stronger the monsters become. He asks how the soldiers' morale is holding up. The officer beside him hesitates. He says they are far more spirited than when they first started. Roland catches something in his tone and asks him to go on. The officer trails off without finishing. Outside the tent, one of those large-eared beasts comes shrieking out of the tree line. Jin is there before anyone else. His steel flashes in the dark. The monster collapses in 2 pieces. The guy flicks something small and dull out of the corpse and examines it with a sigh. He mutters that it is another dud. That mercenary is taking care of every single monster. The second they appear, one soldier grumbles nearby to another. Getting outdone by a single mercenary hurts the pride of the Order Alliance. This is not something to laugh about, an older paladin agrees. The soldiers are getting far too relaxed. On top of that, the mercenary is going to claim a massive amount of the performance rewards. Roland only smiles and waves the grumbling away. He says lightly that a good thing is a good thing. Thanks to Jin, they have barely had any casualties. The fact that stronger monsters keep showing up means their destination is right around the corner. They should rest while they still can. Far from the marching column, deep in a chamber of dark stone, lit only by cold witchlight, 3 figures are watching that march from a distance. The one hooded in dark cloth speaks first, asking how those guys found out about this place. A red-haired woman in a black half-veil answers evenly. She says they planted so many rift cores around here that it would honestly be odder if the Order had not gotten suspicious. Another veiled figure murmurs that she still believes their youngest anticipated this much when she made her move. Their chosen youngest sibling, she says softly, could not possibly be that incompetent. The third figure lifts his head and grins under the brim of a broad red witch hat. He tells them all not to worry, as they know the defenders always hold the advantage over the attackers. The enemy's reaction was only slightly earlier than expected. Either way, none of this will interfere with the great plan of darkness. Back at the Vanguard's edge, Roland and Jin walk out to the ridge together and stop dead. Roland breathes out in shock, asking what kind of madness this is, because the entire canyon in front of them, from wall to wall and from floor to sky, is choked with an enormous cathedral of white webbing. Silk threads thick enough to anchor ships lace the whole gorge shut. Tiny figures dangle in the strands by the thousands. The great plan of darkness has been waiting for them all along. Roland wants to know if they are sure this is their destination. The Order's advisor beside him confirms it. The demonic realm's corrupt energy is concentrating right here. Roland shakes his head slowly. He has never heard of a place with this kind of layout existing. This is quite bewildering to him. Beside him, our boy watches the vast spider silk cathedral below and lets a suspicion out loud. He asks quietly if all of this does not seem a bit strange. Roland tilts his head at that. Normally Jin tells him it is advantageous to fight from high ground, but if the dark priests dug a deep hole and built their hideout at the bottom of it, that would be to avoid exposure. Roland nods slowly at that. Then they should have dug a tunnel, he adds. That does make sense, he goes on. Then why build it out in the open? Jin's voice drops flat. In his opinion, it could be a trap. Roland's face goes still at those words. He does not get to finish his thought. Something huge crashes down from the canopy of webs above, and steel and screaming erupt across the ridge in the same heartbeat. One scout stammers that it is a Bigfoot. What emerges from the dust confirms it. A hulking man-shaped monster 4 to 7 meters tall, with immense strength written into every joint. But the Bigfoot is not alone. Coiled around its arm is a thick-scaled snake with dull yellow eyes. The scouts identify it as a salmosa. Sturdy hide and deadly venom in one convenient package. There is not just one pair either. A whole pack of these Bigfoot and salmosa duos comes crashing down from above and boiling up out of the pit at the same time. A soldier yells across the line that everyone is falling into the hole. Roland is already shouting orders, telling them to deal with the Bigfoots first. A scout cries back that they are too big. Roland does not blink. He calls sharply for the holy choir to hurry and cast buffs. At the center of the storm, Jin's eyes shift into a red glow, and one corner of his mouth curls up. Come on, then, he murmurs. He picks his target on sight. The largest of the pack, with the thickest salmosa wrapped around its arm, is the pack leader by every mark that matters. He moves toward it. Roland spots him halfway across the fighting and shouts his name. It is already too late for the commander to stop him. Inside our boy's head, though, everything is calm. That is right, he tells himself. The beast striding to meet him knows too. Its opponent is him. They collide in a rush of dust and rearing steel. The Bigfoot swings its snake-wrapped arm, and Jin ducks under it. He rolls off the ridge and comes up on lower ground. He watches how the pair moves together. The Bigfoot has the mobility to weaponize the terrain. It brings raw, close combat strength most soldiers cannot match. For ranged attacks, it has the salmosa's poison for anyone stupid enough to try to keep distance. Each of these is a truly coveted ability to have. They look absolutely delicious to him. Inside himself, he keeps working through the problem. Normally, when two monsters join forces to fight, their strength does not just add up but multiplies. But that type of monster has a common weakness. Just as it is tricky for a lone hunter to face two monsters at once, it is equally difficult for the monsters themselves to treat their two bodies as one. No matter how good their teamwork looks, when the pressure spikes high enough, eventually they will move purely on instinct. He forces the moment. He drives a strike hard at the Bigfoot's throat, and both beast and snake react at the same instant, crashing into each other's guard. The snake screeches in fury. The Bigfoot roars in confusion. Their coordination breaks apart completely. This, our boy says under his breath, is exactly how you hunt two monsters at once. He goes through them clean, and his blade flashes twice in the settling dust. The pair crashes onto the ridgestone hard enough to shake the walls of the pit. Well, still, Jin murmurs, giving the corpses a lazy once-over. It was pretty decent work for a gatekeeper. Then he pauses, and something on the ground catches his eye. His gloved hand hovers over the salmosa's body. The snake monster's core is sitting right there, and there is a strange feeling about it. Something about this one hums against the back of his skull in a way the other cores never did. He shrugs and plucks the core out. It is blue-black and pulsing. He puts it in his mouth. Jin's red eye flares brighter than usual. The absorption ripples through him from head to hand, and the monster's ability is absorbed. Then on top of that, something new. The young man's brow lifts as the realization lands. He can now distinguish which monster cores actually offer inheritance. He has devoured so many cores by this point that he is gaining all sorts of crazy abilities. This new sixth sense means he no longer has to eat blindly. This is a massive haul for him. Nothing happens the way he expected. Somewhere on the ridge above, someone starts laughing at him with an ugly high sound. It is the red witch hat wizard from the Dark Priest's Council, watching him from a distance with obvious delight. The wizard sneers down at him, calling him utterly pathetic for acting so relaxed in enemy territory. Jin mutters under his breath and curses the situation. It is a fail, because his skin is cracking, not from injury, but from underneath. Golden light spills out along a spreading map of fissures across his arms and chest. The surface between the cracks hardens into something heavy and dark. His silhouette bulks out with the new armor as it locks in. His eyes stay red. The transformation settles across him completely. And here he hoped he would get the poison ability. He stares down at his own transformed arm, with that thought hanging quiet in his head. The stone plating locks around Jin's arms and chest with gold light seeping through the cracks, and our boy takes a careful breath as the last of the fire licks off his skin. It is not the ability he wanted, but it seems pretty useful. But the fight is not over yet. Something snaps in the corner of his vision, and a burning whip of energy lashes toward him from the ridge above. Jin's sword flashes up and catches it clean. Sparks rain around him. His stone-plated forearm takes the follow-up and holds firm. Above him, the red witch hat wizard from the Dark Priest's Council stares in disbelief. He blocked the attack twice. Then the wizard's eyes narrow with sudden recognition. Could it be him, the crazy bastard who hangs around humans while gorging on monster cores? If so, the wizard mutters, he will have to go all out too. He raises his arms. A rippling shroud of purple erupts around him, and long segmented spider legs unfold from his back. Hick lashes of web slam down at Jin from every angle. Jin ducks and rolls, and comes up with a single word landing hard inside his head. It has to be inheritance. So this creepy old man ate a spider monster's core somewhere, and inherited the whole package. The wizard is grinning now. He calls down that he has been wanting to face this hunter. To think Jin would just show up here. He is so thankful he could cry over it. Then he changes the attack. A hot shimmer floods the air between them, with poison gas saturating the space around Jin. A flick of the wizard's finger ignites it. The whole gorge erupts into a wall of fire. Somewhere on the ridge, Roland's voice cuts through the roar, calling out his name. Jin does not fall. He walks out of the smoke instead, with black hair singed at the ends, and stone plating cracked, but still holding. Blood is streaked down the corner of his mouth. The wizard purrs that it is excellent. To think someone could withstand a direct hit from that. He wonders aloud if it is a stretch to call Jin human. Combining poison gas and fire creates a much stronger explosion, and even Stonehide was too little for this. A dark priest, our boy mutters. As expected, they are not to be underestimated at all. Then he moves on the wizard. He closes the gap at a full sprint. The wizard whips his spider legs down to block. The wizard pulses a spike of purple energy at point-blank range, and Jin takes it hard in the chest. Inside himself, our boy is running the math. His internal organs are wrecked from the fire. His regeneration and his stone hide are both at their limit. He cannot endure much further from here. Now all he can do is one thing. He plants his feet and drops his weight, and channels the technique the elder made him relearn every day back at the Vritra arena. It is mana arts. The same key manipulation bow used on him. The strike lands with a clean ringing thud, and that same formless shockwave, and something crumples inside the wizard's guard. Then incredibly he starts laughing wildly. How intriguing this is, he goes on. He now understands why they left this one alone. Not only did Jin block his attacks with that shoddy stone skill, but he even used mana arts. Jin is definitely too valuable a talent to kill. Jin drops to one knee with blood dripping off his chin onto the stone. The wizard walks toward him unhurried with spider legs slithering across the ground behind him. The wizard says softly that very well. He will make Jin a special offer. He tells Jin to join the Dark Priests. If he does, he will at least spare his life. It should not be a bad deal for him. Jin already knows that using skills makes a person special, but ordinary humans who are not special will always keep trying to forbid that power. If Jin ever uses this power out in the open, they will try to kill him and call him a Dark Priest. It will be no different for Jin, the wizard promises. He is just lucky to be hanging out with the Order Alliance right now. But when they find out he uses the power of monster cores, does he really think they will still see him as a human? The wizard extends his hand. He tells Jin to take his hand. They should join forces as people in the same situation. Then Jin can become even stronger and enjoy even greater power. The young man looks at that hand for a long, quiet moment. Blood drips off his chin onto the stone. Then his cracked mouth pulls into something close to a grin. The wizard's smile drops in a single blink. He mutters that this will not do. He needs to teach this hunter a lesson. He really did not want to use this, but Jin leaves him no choice. The wizard's smile drops in a single blink. He mutters that this will not do. He needs to teach this hunter a lesson. He really did not want to use this, but Jin leaves him no choice. Then it just dies. The heat winks out and the wind stops completely. The wizard blinks at his own empty hand in dumb confusion, because Jin is standing up. Not the way an injured man stands up either. His whole silhouette has changed. The stone plating has cracked open across his chest, and beneath it something new is showing through. It is thicker and denser and alive with a low red glow. The wizard stammers that this power cannot be real. His voice has gone thin and confused. Jin tells him flatly that he should at least say something that makes sense. He is still advancing. Then he stops right in front of the wizard and looks him dead in the face. Our boy delivers his answer to the special offer. How could a wolf, he asks quietly, ever serve a dog? The wizard's mouth drops open. Is every earlier exchange in this fight just this monster of a man playing weak? His mind spins on the horror of it. Is Jin hiding this power the whole time? He grits his teeth and screams for his children. 2 orbs answer him, and one blooms red, while the other glows poisonous bright green. He hurls both down at Jin with the words of his finisher, telling Jin to turn into ashes. The wizard's face drains of color. The gap in power between them is this huge, he chokes out. He asks what kind of monster core Jin ate to get this strong. Whatever it is, his brain skips straight past pride into pure survival. Staying here is dangerous, and he needs to run right now. He turns to flee. Jin is already behind him. The dark priest's own thought comes back at him in a scream, asking when Jin got behind him. He tries to spin and cover, and Jin's fist meets his forearm with a sound of something heavy snapping. Bone gives underneath the blow. The wizard doubles over with an ugly gurgle, and our boy does not stop. Another blow lands square in his face, and blood sprays across the cracked stone. The dark priest grunts as he crumples onto his knees. He sputters and begs Jin to please just wait. They should talk this whole thing out. He looks up with eyes gone wide and desperate. He and Jin both consumed monster cores. If they talk, he insists they might be able to build something far more mutually beneficial. Jin says nothing at first. He walks closer instead with red aura curling off his shoulders, and when he finally speaks, his voice is completely flat. The only help the wizard can offer him, he says, is giving him information on the other dark priests. The wizard's expression twists. He asks why Jin is doing this. He and Jin use the exact same power. Jin will just end up abandoned by humans anyway, so why is he trying to side with them? That our boy answers does not answer the question he asked. The dark priest's composure breaks entirely. He babbles frantically, saying he will do everything Jin wants him to do. He does not get to finish the sentence. Jin's arm moves once, and something inside the wizard tears open in a red spray. The dark priest jerks with his arms flying outward, and Jin looks down at the shredded thing at his feet without any expression at all. He only gets one chance, our boy tells the dying man quietly, and that is all he gets. The wizard's ruined face lifts one last time. Blood wells from his lips, and he manages a final rasp aimed straight at Jin. Then he goes still. For a long moment there is only Jin standing in the wreckage. Then something in his chest hitches and the red aura sputters and pulls back into him. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and lets out a long, ragged breath. This is exhausting, he mutters to himself. This is exactly why he does not want to use this ability. Even using it for a moment takes a massive toll on his body, and he can feel every second of it now. The stone-hide crust flakes off him in patches. His knees start to shake. This is bad for him. His eyes are closing on their own. He cannot fall asleep here in the middle of a dark priest base with who knows what else waiting in the shadows. Then something moves at the edge of his blurring vision, and he squints toward it. Is that someone he knows? A tall figure runs into view with red hair whipping behind him and cape trailing across the broken ground. Our boy's cracked lips shape a single name almost in question. It is Roland standing there. Roland breathes out in relief, saying thank goodness it all worked out. He barks over his shoulder for someone to hurry up and bring a stretcher. Then his eyes catch Jin's shredded state with the torn clothes and the streaks of dried blood and the black burn marks across his ribs. His voice softens as he says the name again. He murmurs, asking what kind of battle Jin even fights down here. Later, in a quiet upper room of the third Pioneer City, morning light filters through a tall grid of windows and falls across a wide bed. The sheets rustle as Jin pushes himself up onto one elbow, still wrapped in tight linen bandages across his ribs and shoulders. He lets out one long, dragged breath. He survived this time, half question and half disbelief inside his own head. Before he can even sit all the way up, footsteps clatter in the hallway. A woman in the doorway claps a hand to her mouth in shock. Then her voice pitches up as she calls back down the corridor that the mercenary has woken up. Boots come pounding down the hall. A tall figure with wild red hair rounds the corner and skids into the room with his cape flying and eyes lit up with relief. Roland tells him he is really awake. Jin asks what happened, still blinking the sleep out of his eyes. Roland tells him he has been unconscious for 3 whole days. Jin's expression flickers, and inside he does the quick math with a small chill. 3 days is a long time. Even with his new regeneration ability, the backlash from that berserker form is no joke at all. He pushes the thought down and asks whether the expedition is over. Roland answers that, yes, they took care of most of the surrounding rift cores, and casualties stayed minimal. He dips his head with real gratitude and tells Jin that all of it is thanks to him. The young man lets a slow, lazy grin spread across his face. Then Roland can just make it up to him, he drawls, with a generous reward. And here Jin allows himself a private, quiet thought. The feeling of being acknowledged is something he could never get tired of, no matter how many times it happens. But the peace does not last. There is a knock at the door, softer than Roland's boots, and a new figure steps inside. A man in a black clerical uniform, trimmed in white, with silver hair slicked back and round glasses catching the morning light. He introduces himself as being from the Order Alliance, and says very politely that he would like to take Jin's testimony regarding this expedition. What kind of opponent Jin faced, how he fought them, in as much detail as possible. Jin's face goes still at that. He asks carefully why the Order Alliance needs this from him. They need to keep records, the man in glasses answers evenly. The battlefield is too much of a mess to piece together, and they simply cannot accept what the survivors are telling them. That it is, he says with a small precise pause, a fight between a human and a monster. Is he still under suspicion? So much for a happy ending, and how annoying that is. On the surface he keeps a lopsided little smirk in place, but his mind is already flipping through options. This is a problem for him. What kind of lie is he supposed to make up on the spot for something with this much scrutiny behind it? The sliding door slips open, and a familiar bald crown ducks under the doorway. Elder Bo, with his red headband tied over his blind eyes and prayer beads hanging heavy across his robe, steps into the room without asking permission for anything. He tells the investigator that he will handle that himself. The Order Alliance man freezes. He starts to ask what Bo means by handling it himself. Bo tilts his head slightly and asks in a voice with real edge to it whether he is not being clear enough this time. The room's temperature seems to drop. A red aura ripples off the old man, and his next words carry no gentleness at all. He tells the investigator to get out. The man in glasses stammers that he understands. He is halfway backing out the door before he finishes the word, and his glasses catch sharp glints as he ducks his head and hurries away. The door slides shut behind him. Jin sags a little against the pillow and lets out a quiet laugh. He tells Bao that he is thankful because he really was worried about being misunderstood right after waking up. Behind that easy line he is thinking harder. This old man has been very interested in him ever since they first met. He needs to be careful about how much rope he takes here. The elder tells him not to worry, because no matter what form Jin takes, Bo continues he has already decided to trust him. The guy's grin freezes on his face. He starts to ask what that even means. Bo lifts one weathered hand. Something rests in his palm. A rough glowing thing, deep blue veined with pale light and giving off a slow cold shimmer that Jin recognizes at once. His breath catches in his throat at the sight. A monster core Bo finishes for him. That is what this is. It came from the body of the dark priest that Jin killed. Bo secretly slipped it away from the recovery team before anyone else could see. And for some reason the elder adds, with that same small smile, he had a feeling that Jin might want it. Our boy stares at the offered core with its cold blue light dancing across his bandaged fingers and does not say anything at all. The dark-plated armor slides over Jin's shoulders, and it fits him perfectly. He rolls his neck and flexes his gloved hands and lets out a low, impressed breath. Elder Bo chuckles from across the sunlit room, saying it suits him quite well. Jin blinks toward the blind old monk with a small surprised smile and asks how the old man can see it at all, but looks aside. He tells Bo this thing is beyond just being comfortable. The fabric feels completely one with his body. If he had known custom armor could feel this good, he would have gotten his clothes tailored from the very start. Bo smirks under his red bandana and tells him not to get too satisfied just by trying the piece on. The true value of those clothes, the elder says, is not their comfort. Then he steps forward and without any warning drives a fist glowing with pale gold straight into Jin's chest. Jin coughs hard from the impact. Did this old man just punch a guy who has been in a coma for 3 whole days? Our boy glares with genuine disbelief at the elder. Then he pauses and straightens carefully and realizes something odd. He can barely feel anything from the hit at all. That is because it is a relic, Bo explains, and lets that word land. A relic is an object imbued with magic that is expensive and rare. Its weight is only that of beast hide, he says, but it holds a defense comparable to full plate armor. The young man runs his fingers over the smooth surface of the piece and murmurs that these relic things must cost a fortune. Bo nods calmly, telling him that of course they do. They are hard to obtain no matter how much gold a man has. And speaking of gold right now, Bo leads him to another room where Cindy waits beside a wide wooden chest. The lid tips open and a wave of coins spills out into the light. A small, quiet mountain of them. This, Bo says gently, is the reward for the mission, a total of 2,400 gold coins. Jin echoes the number back with his voice climbing. He asks if it is really okay for them to be giving him this much money. Cindy folds her hands in front of her and answers him evenly. He earns it through the countless monsters he hunts, she says. The Rift Core and the Dark Priest are only dealt with thanks to him. His contributions are far from ordinary, so this much is a given. Bo adds with a small satisfied hum that of course he also tossed in a little extra from himself. As expected of such a huge job, the reward is insane. Jin looks slowly from Cindy to Bo and then quietly asks the question that has been sitting on his tongue. Even so, he says, why are they treating him this well? Behind his careful expression, an old instinct whispers that excessive kindness is always suspicious. The two of them he presses, even though they know that he consumes monster cores. Cindy's eyes go wide at that. Bo bursts out laughing behind his beard. Even when he treats our boy well, the old monk sighs. This guy still gives him grief. No, he tells Jin it is just, and then he trails off with that small, unreadable smile as the story pulls somewhere else entirely. Somewhere far from that quiet, sunlit room, night has already fallen. A pair of guards patrol a stone wall along a distant monastery. One of them stops mid-step and mutters, asking if something just moved over there. His partner scoffs and tells him it is only the wind. The first guard shakes his head. Something definitely moved out there. The second guard opens his mouth to laugh him off and does not get to finish. A blond man in a white hood drops out of the dark with heavy chains coiled around his neck. Steel snaps taut around the guard. The first guard goes down in a spray of blood before he can even lift his weapon. The second one stumbles backward with eyes blown wide and stammers out a demand to know who this stranger even is. The chain wielder answers with a manic laugh and rips through him too. Deep inside a cold cave, 3 figures have gathered around a low fire and a slow blue glow. A woman with long dark red hair and a mask across her lower face stands at the center of them, with dark eyes narrowed. She says that to have been defeated by such incompetent fools is unacceptable. She murmurs about their youngest and what used to be Enoch. The blonde chain wielder shrugs and says the guy was complete trash. He guesses there really are guys stronger than the low-level knights standing guard. Another cloaked figure to the woman's side with prayer beads swinging agrees quietly that it does not really matter. He somewhat expected the little brother to lose anyway, since that the woman finishes coolly is exactly as far as their plan has to go. The blonde raises his eyebrows at that. She thought as much about this. Well then, the cloaked figure with the beads says lightly and asks if they should get moving as well. The blue glow at the man's feet ignites into a wide humming rune circle. One of them declares as the light climbs the walls that they have to initiate their plan now. The goal is to wipe out all of these humans. Somewhere in the shadows behind them, a human body hangs limp against cold stone, and a bottle of bright blue liquid sits on a table beneath it, freshly drawn and glowing softly. Back in the monastery, Bo finishes the sentence he trailed off from earlier. He knows he is in no position to reprimand Jin, the old monk says, with real weight in his voice, but he is rather in a position to ask for a favor. He asks Jin to please use that formidable power for the sake of humanity. Inside, our boy is reeling in the best possible way. He had spent the last few days quietly bracing to be tortured if anyone ever found out he ate monster cores. To think they would react by asking him to use that power to help them instead. He has been worried, he admits privately, but now he can only be thankful for this. He asks carefully if anyone else knows about him. Bao shakes his head. For now it is just the two of them, because he does not think others would react the same way as they did. Jin lets out a slow breath and agrees quietly that he supposes not. Then he asks how exactly he can help. Bao lifts a small pouch and produces the rough blue stone he showed Jin the night before. That is the Dark Priest's monster core. From what Bo understands, the elder tells him consuming a monster core lets a person gain the memories of the monster. Of course, the probability is very low, but if a man consumes the core of someone who is originally of human birth, the probability apparently increases significantly. Bo's bandana crinkles into a small smile as he explains this. So that is why he saw the memories of Golden Bug's son back then. That is because the Golden Bug Wolf is originally a human-turned-monster. It all snaps into place for him now. So he says aloud, Bo wants him to consume this core and find information about the other dark priests. The old monk simply hands the core to him. He leaves it to Jin. Not only has our boy found someone he can talk to comfortably, he also gets to eat the very core he missed out on because he passed out. So Bo leaves him with no choice but to eat this monster core, for the greater good of course. For a moment the world blurs, and Jin is not standing in the monastery anymore. A broken failure of a man begging on the floor of an elegant balcony. He does not want this shitty life of a failure. He wants true and overwhelming power. Above him, the veiled dark priest woman stares down with cool amusement and tells him to prove it then. She holds out something small and glowing, the beginning of what would become Enoch. Jin's eyes flash blue in the present as the vision snaps loose. Cindy leans in with a worried breath and asks whether he is all right. Bao watches with quiet attention. Jin lets out a slow, careful exhale and lifts his head. Yes, he tells them. He also learned something important, the Dark Priest's next plan. Later that same day, the three of them walk together along the sunlit stone path outside the monastery, and Jin lays out what he pulled from Enoch's memories. Bao asks whether he is really certain about all of this. Jin answers that yes, he is sure. This whole expedition battle in Web Canyon has only been a smokescreen for those Dark Priest bastards. While they had the humans distracted, their actual plan has been moving elsewhere entirely. Jin holds up a small envelope stamped in wax between two fingers. The tradition, he says, that has never once been broken after an expedition ends. It is the Archbishop's banquet. They are planning to raid it and wipe out all the high-ranking officials there. Bao's face turns grave. If it is the banquet, the elder muses their own security should be quite substantial. He asks if the Dark Priest's military strength is really at that level. Jin admits he could not see their exact scale. But there is a man wearing an iron mask, he tells Bao, and one Jin has never seen before. That woman behind the Golden Bug's son's deaths is with them there as well. Those two's combat power alone looks serious. Bao murmurs slowly while stroking his beard. Raiding the banquet is no small matter. Cindy has been quiet up to this point. In her opinion, she says finally this would be too dangerous to handle on their own. They should inform the Order Alliance and cancel the banquet at this very moment. Bao cuts in sharply and says that will not work. If they report this matter to the Order Alliance, he explains, they would also have to reveal that Jin consumes monster cores. If that happens, they might get framed as the Dark Priest themselves. On top of that, if they simply cancel the banquet, the enemy could just fall back to a backup plan they have not yet uncovered. That would put them back to square one. They must use the information Jin has given them. Bei answers, and the corners of his bandana crease into a small, sharp grin. If they know the rats are coming, they just need to set a mousetrap. Night falls over the city and the great banquet hall glows warm against the dark. The young man steps into the marble entrance in his new dark-plated armor, with a long brown-red cape draped from one shoulder and black gauntlets clean and quiet. Heads turn toward him. Two noble ladies behind painted fans whisper to each other. One murmurs, asking if that is the mercenary from the expedition and the one who played such a huge role. The other tilts her head and says he is young and does not look all that strong. Still, the first insists they say he turns into a beast once a battle begins. The second one says she should try talking to him, and her friend giggles that this lady really is something. Jin passes them without breaking stride. A familiar voice booms behind him, and an arm slings across his shoulders before he can even turn around. Roland grins and calls him their genius and the star of the day. To think he is only showing his face now after the battle. Roland pretends to be aggrieved. He thought our boy actually died out there. Jin's dry smile lifts. He asks slowly if Roland is actually worried about him. Roland laughs and admits it. He is sorry because things have been so hectic afterward that it ended up getting away from him. He will admit that the whole battle has been no joke. More importantly, Jin says with his gaze sliding sideways. He asks what is going on over there. Roland follows Jin's line of sight and notes that their genius has a tail on him right now. Jin's eyes flick up to a high balcony overlooking the hall. There, resting a lens on the crowd from behind round rimless glasses, stands the silver-haired Order Alliance Inquisitor from his recovery room. His sharp black uniform stands out against the crowd, watching Jin very deliberately. That is an Inquisitor, Jin says quietly. Roland takes a slow sip from his glass and sighs that this guy really is working truly hard at his job. He told our boy he suspects Jin because Jin is too strong, Jin murmurs. Roland shrugs and pours himself another drink. Those who did not even participate in the expedition are always the gloomiest. As a fellow member of the Order Alliance, Roland adds he apologizes for the hassle. Still, Jin should not be too upset about it. The fact that Jin fought for many people does not change. Jin lets that settle for a moment. He tells Roland that he really appreciates it. Roland just tips his glass at him. At the far end of the hall, an usher raises his voice. The Archbishop has arrived. Every head in the room turns and lowers slightly. Down the wide staircase steps a serene old man in creamy vestments with a small mitre resting on his head and a gold cross and key emblem embroidered across his chest. This is Archbishop Conrad, the highest-ranking cleric of the Order Alliance, and every attendee dips their head as he enters. Conrad asks warmly if everyone is enjoying the banquet. This gathering is for all of them, he says, so he would be grateful if they could just enjoy themselves tonight. Somewhere in the crowd, Jin's gaze catches bows across the room. The old monk's bandana crinkles in a small understanding smile. The atmosphere is reaching its peak. Our boy steadies his breath. That is the signal. He should get ready now because he needs to be prepared to face them. Far above, the city moonlight cuts across rooftops. Two hooded figures slide silently between the shadows, moving with purpose. Back in the banquet hall, a knight in half armor bursts through the main doors, and he is breathless. He calls out to the Archbishop that they have a problem. Conrad turns calmly and asks what kind of problem. The Archbishop's advisor stammers beside him, unable to get the words out properly. As they speak, the knight shouts that a massive swarm of abominations has appeared at the city's north gate. Outside the north gate splinters under a wave of twisted purple-black bodies. Claws and distorted limbs and glowing red eyes come pouring through. Screams rise up from every direction. Inside the hall, guests recoil as one. Someone gasps that abominations have invaded. Another cries out asking what is happening so suddenly. Hours before this moment, the three of them had sat around a long dark table in the monastery war room, and Bo had explained his mousetrap in plain terms. No matter how much of a surprise attack the dark priest launch, the elder said fighting all the knights stationed at the banquet directly would be physically impossible for them. In that case, there is only one move they can make. They will cause a disturbance in some district of the city. That will force the humans' troops to scatter, and it will create the exact opening for the Dark Priest to attack the banquet hall itself. They should do everything in their power to stop that opening from happening, Bo instructed. Pull troops from here if they have to, but stop the scattering at all costs. Preventing that will be the most important part. Cindy answered coolly with a cup lifted to her lips. But since this is the Archbishop's banquet, she said she does not have the authority to command those troops. She will take care of it, Cindy answered simply. Before the knights can be swayed by the sheer numbers at the gate, she said they just need to blow up the banquet hall first. On a stone wall in a lower corridor, a small gold device had been fitted between the mortar, with wires curling around a glowing core. A trap set inside the very hall Jin now stands in. Back in the present, the ground under the guests jumps hard. The ceiling of the banquet hall cracks and drops in a roaring cloud of dust. Chandeliers swing wildly overhead, and guests scream all across the floor. Someone shouts asking what is going on. A captain of the guard bellows over the chaos for the knights to protect the officials. The men shout back and close ranks around Conrad and the nobles. They hold position instead of racing off to the north gate to reinforce the walls. At the edge of the smoke, half hidden by a fallen banner, Jin's mouth pulls into a small, knowing smile. The knights did not leave their posts, and it all worked perfectly. From now on, the game changes. Across the city, two hooded figures crouch on the rooftop of a tall stone tower. The veiled dark priest woman and the blonde chain wielder watch the far-off glow of the explosion bloom against the night sky. The blonde blinks and says he did not expect an explosion. He asks if that was part of their plan. The woman's dark eyes narrow slowly. She murmurs, asking if they have been figured out. A slow, sharp grin spreads under her veil. They know the dark priests are coming. On another rooftop in the same moonlight, a dark hooded figure lands lightly on the tiles and lifts his head. The mask of his hood falls back. Jin's eyes flare a fresh cold red in the dark. It is time to catch the rats. The guy steadies himself on the edge and waits.